I would love for you to help me understand fundamentally what is Lakshmi.
Lakshmi is literally the goal. What a mantra does is it overrides neural pathways that you have. And so the mantra is a new way of living. So if you're doing a Surya mantra, you will notice punctuality as well.
What's the relationship between the Atmakaraka and the Amatyakaraka?
Atmakarka is sort of thing your soul is seeking in this life, and Amatyakarka is the soul's helper.
Meditation karunga सांस वाली. If I do that, perhaps am I strengthening my pranic body? Am I getting that right?
Yes, that is correct. Pranayama basically means to hold your prana. Instead of consuming a lot of astrology content, I really encourage self-study, going out, finding out for yourself if something works out for you. 90% of the time, it is just someone else's perspective. You know, this is nectar and I'll drink it, but it's actually poison for you.
What is tantric astrology?
I won't talk a lot about it.
Gupta Vidya hai.
Yeah, it is Gupta Vidya. It basically uses your body as...
When it comes to romance and love, are there certain placements or nakshatras that are super bad for it and certain that are super good for it? How should I call you? Siddhi or Sivamai? What's your Twitter?
Siddhi.
Siddhi. Your name is Siddhi.
Yeah.
I discovered a Twitter account a long time ago, which is Sivamai with the different
It's called Shivamai.
Shivamai. हाँ मतलब तुमने ऐसा लिखा हुआ है Sivamai. But I've been reading your tweets and I really like your approach towards Vedic astrology. It is an uncanny one. Even when I spoke to you over DMs, you were giving me some tips on how to manage a specific dasha, and what you said was very different. You take a, I don't know if you maybe perhaps you're a Gen Z astrologer, or perhaps you like you said, take a Devi centered approach. Anyway, ये सारी बातें थी. That's a good enough intro. You said you wanted to start with a prayer, so we can have the prayer. मुझे भी हाथ वो करने हैं.
If you want to. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Ganganpate Namaha. Vagdeve cha vidmahe Virinchi Patni Dhimahi Tanno Vani Prachodayat. Shukpriyaya vidmahe Kameshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Shyama Prachodayat. Om Ram Rim Rum Sah Suryaya Namaha. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Shri Matri Namaha. We're done.
Done?
Yeah.
क्या prayer थी ये?
Okay, so in Brihad Parashara Hora Shastra, it's one of the most important texts for Jyotish. They say that each astrologer should do these 3 vandanas, or these sort of salutations to 3 deities. The sun, the goddess Saraswati, and Lord Vishnu. So the first prayer was for Ganpati, obviously. You can't do any prayer without Ganpati. Then there was my guru that I remembered. And then we have the goddess Saraswati in 2 forms. So there's Saraswati and Matangi. So I did the Gayatri mantra for those 2. And then there was the Surya mantra, and then there was finally the Narayana mantra.
In prayers को करने से, what is the effect that this prayer is trying to cause in the environment?
I think it's just a good head start wherever you're going to have
Right.
these 3 main deities with you, because Saraswati, again, she's the goddess of speech, right? So she protects your speech, and then Surya is the impact your speech can have. That's why Surya is related to the kings. And then we have Narayana, who maintains that impact. So that's why
Interesting.
those 3 deities.
I remember when we spoke, you suggested doing some chants. Now, typically when I think about chants, I think about Buddhist chants. या हम अगर सनातन धर्म में देखते हैं, तो हम जब घर पे ब्राह्मण को बुलाते हैं, पंडित को बुलाते हैं, तो वो मंत्र को जप करते हैं, या उनको लोग दिवाली के टाइम पे गायत्री मंत्र करते हैं और पूजाएं करते हैं. बट ऑन अ डेली बेसिस टू परहैप्स strengthen some planets, this practice I found a little strange, and I hadn't heard of it. But I know for a fact that you're a champion of mantras. Why champion mantras? What's the significance of doing mantras?
So the word mantra literally means that which binds the mind. Now, our mind is actually not located somewhere in the head. It's actually the entire body. Our entire body is just it's just like a soup of everything we've ever been. Like the soul has it has all of our karmas. It has a lot of our samskaras in it. And so with mantra, we're able to overcome a lot of those samskaras. Samskaras are basically psychological impressions from different lifetimes. So for example, if someone has this so there's samskara and then there's vasana. Vasana basically means how you play out those samskaras. So if you have a samskara for wanting fame, or if you have the samskara for let's say becoming a mother, simple things, okay, and you have a desire for it, that is what vasana means, a desire to play out that samskara. A mantra can help you. So a mantra is mainly useful. There's a lot of different mantras, but the point of a whole mantra is to actually remove those samskaras. It's to get rid of those, inclinations that you have, and by fulfilling them. So some mantras bring you fulfillment, some bring you moksha.
Right.
Depends on what kind of intention you have with the mantra. So it begins with the mind, right?
ये जो philosophy है of samskaras and vasanas, ये आती कहाँ से? Is there a text that you derive this from?
There's a lot of text that it comes from, but I think you can look into the Vedas and the Upanishads. The Upanishads talk about samskaras and vasanas a lot, and they talk about the nature of reality in the way we're waking, sleeping, awake. All of those. Mandukya Upanishad is one of those Upanishads that people can look into in order to know how they remain the same despite having so many samskaras and vasanas.
How do these psychological impressions, yes, samskaras manifest in our lives? For example, like what possible samskaras and vasanas would I have when I, was born and now I'm like, I don't know, 27 years old doing this in my life? Like, how can I find that out?
It's very interesting because as you live life, you learn, you have different desires for things, and it all begins with desire. So when Shiva and Shakti, they separated from each other, the first three things that came in were Ichha, Jnana, Kriya. So Ichha is paramount, and Ichha comes, the desire for doing things, wanting things, even if it comes out of nowhere, that's a samskara. So for example, if you want a specific kind of person or a specific kind of car or anything like that, you have a desire for it because you've experienced some of it in your past life. If you have an inclination towards God, that's also a desire. If you have an inclination towards a guru, that was also a desire you could not fulfill in a past life. And so in this life, that's what you're trying to seek. And that's how people have, negative desires as well in this world.
So if I do a chant, if I do a mantra, that I can sort of using the mantra fulfill that desire without actually having the thing itself.
Depends. So it depends on the kind of mantra you're doing and how it impacts your birth chart and all of those things. And it all, sometimes, people start mantras and they drop it midway.
And what does that do?
I guess like some mantras are not really meant for certain people. So if you do a mantra continuously, that's actually the grace of the mantra itself. Sometimes you have only a limited, so you have a give and take, like a particular karma with mantras as well. This is something my teacher taught me. I had no idea and it blew my mind. So if in this life you are to do a mantra, a certain number of chants, the mantra will find you. So all of these people who seek initiation, it comes at the right time.
Tomorrow is Sunday, incidentally. No, so I'll tell you, you asked me to do the sun mantra because I found that very fascinating. And I was sitting in this room alone and it wasn't designed this well. And my flatmate was sitting outside, so he didn't stop because he told me कि उसके घर में भी वो सुबह मंत्र चलाते हैं. That basically using that mantra out loud initiated us into a culture where we would play mantras in the morning. हमने फिर शिव तांडव स्तोत्रम, a few other mantras that he knows, we started playing those in the morning. That effect was there. When I was doing the Surya mantra, I did notice this. आप बार-बार किसी चीज़ को chant करते हो तो आपके अंदर, I think, I don't know, maybe perhaps through sound healing or sound meditation, I did feel a sense of aliveness. कि मैं इतने concentrated effort से एक चीज़ को over and over again बोल रहा हूँ. And I also, फटाफट मैंने Blinkit कराया एक रुद्राक्ष, which will, of course, many रुद्राक्ष lovers will hate me for saying this, क्योंकि नहीं, ये 5 मुखी का है, 2 मुखी का है, whatever, right? But I really found that helpful. So this is like, you said you do it continuously for 4,000 times or 6,000 times.
Yeah.
I started skimping on it. So I started doing, मैंने पहले दिन 600 कर लिए, अगले दिन यार चल यार वो 100, ठीक है, let's just do 5 so it keeps on going. And then I sort of lost it. But through this, what I'm trying to ask you is, when I was a kid, I would read about many gods and asuras जो कुछ कांड करते हैं, फिर वो पेनेंस करते हैं, राइट? वो पेनेंस बहुत सीरियसली करते हैं, तपस्या करते हैं. फिर त्रिमूर्ति भगवानों में से या कोई देवी प्रकट होती है और बोलती है कि आपने इतनी तपस्या करी है, यू सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक पुट योरसेल्फ थ्रू सो मच सैक्रिफाइस, लेट मी ऑफर यू अ बून. To me, it seemed like when I was doing that, it seemed like a corollary or a parallel to doing some kind of a tapasya. Is that what's the intended effect
So
of a mantra?
a tapas or a tapasya, basically the intent is to create urja in the body, or urja means heat. And asuras are great at generating heat. Why? Because they have a naturally rajasic nature, which is the mode of activity. So this mantra...
Rajasic or tamasic?
Rajasic and tamasic.
Okay.
Depending on what mode. So if an asura is doing a particular type of penance for a deity, that's a very rajasic thing, and it takes them to the sattvic point where they can see the deity as well. But the tamasic form is when they start to indulge in things excessively. But yeah, so the point of mantra is to actually create new neural pathways in your brains. So let's say you do a mantra, so you have all of these neural pathways that fire up whenever you're doing a particular activity, you're having a desire, and most of us are running on autopilot.
Sure.
We're not very conscious in our lives. What a mantra does is it overrides, so you can't really change the old neural pathways that you have, but you can create new ones.
Sure.
And so the mantra is a new way of living. You're basically chanting one thing. So if you're doing a Surya mantra, you will notice punctuality as well. You, however, didn't chant it in like the right way. So the correct way of doing it is to take your time with a mantra. Not trying to... So
You can't calendar that in exactly.
correct. So if you have the capacity, some people do 1000 mantras in like the 1000 japa in a day, which means 10 malas or so. But if you don't have the capacity and you're starting out with 600, which is 6 malas, and then the next day, of course, it's going to falter. So you start with 1 mala, and that's why a guru is important over here, because a guru will tell you exactly what you need based on your sort of competency. So guru can assess like how many times you need to do a particular mantra.
You talked about grace earlier when जब हम बैठ के बात कर रहे थे, and there are two schools of conflicting thought that many astrologers have also told me कि इतना मत सोचो, आप meditate ही कर लो, right? And there is this other school of thought where the average astrology consumer या फिर जो अपनी पीढ़ा लेके किसी ज्योतिष के पास जाता है कि आप मुझे इसका उपाय बताइए, या आप मुझे help foretell my future so I'm better aware and I can change my actions accordingly. There is this flip side where you meditate and you don't really need ज्योतिष आपके साथ क्या होने वाला है और gemstones and none of that, or you go the whole way where आप जो भी रेमेडीज़ हैं कि आपकी इस हाउस में एफ्लिक्शन है, आप वो गाय को भी खाना खिला रहे हो, आप जो भी कर रहे हो, and then it gets comical or some ज्योतिषिस are like अपने गुप्तांग पे दही लगाओ, all of that jazz, right? So at what point does Jyotish simply become ineffective, and at what point does what you say, grace or sadhana or letting life manifest as it is, at what point does that take over?
I think there needs to be a very balanced perspective when it comes to these things. So when I first started off Jyotish or like started studying, I was very young, like 15, 14 years old. And I just wanted to know about myself and, why people behave the way they do, and what causes them to do that. And then slowly it transformed into, I have this sort of desire to help people in some way. But then after, seeing like 500 plus clients and talking to everybody, having different issues and everything, it's just transformed into this desire for how to allow more grace in. So a lot of people, what they do with a lot of remedies is they're trying to fix an issue that is supposed to be karma that they are supposed to play out in this life. So if you are to get into an accident, or if you are to have like a certain illness, it will happen to you. You're in this body, you're not an disembodied spirit or anything like that. If something has to happen, it will happen. However, where Jyotish helps is if doing a remedy brings some relief to the restless mind, then I think it's useful in that sense. And which is why like I lean towards sadhana based remedies, because you put your faith in God for these things instead of doing like putting dahi on your...
On your Gupta. There is another question I have about the planet Ketu, right? Something I've never been able to resolve in my own mind. Wherever Ketu sits in your chart, is that supposed to mean detachment from that specific from that specific house and its problems and things, or is it supposed to mean past life expertise? Because I'm not sure, because I've heard very conflicting opinions. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि अगर आपका केतु इस घर में है तो आपने पुराने जन्म में इसकी मास्टरी करी थी तो ये आपको बहुत आसानी से मिल जाएगा. कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि आप और ज़्यादा डिसोल्यूशन और डिटैच्ड रहोगे उस हाउस से. So what is the truth?
It's actually both. So you do gain mastery or expertise over that area, but most people have a very sort of they don't really understand these houses or rashis in a really nice way or in a deeper way. It's just like second ghar paisa, third house is talking, fourth house is mummy ka ghar. They don't have a deeper understanding of these things, so that's why like it sounds like a huge mishmash of things. But Ketu does give you mastery over a particular area in your chart, and then it also, because you have that mastery, because you've fulfilled that part of your karma, it actually helps you let go of it, and then you seek Rahu in this life. We seek our Rahuvian desires because we work with our Indriyas. We're always looking and tasting and smelling and feeling and all of those things. Only when you're meditating, that's when you're embodying Ketu, which is why it's so hard to understand as a planet, because it's a very still planet.
Understood. So what I still didn't understand. Does this mean that because you're detached, you can do this really well? Because
yeah. Anything you do in this life, if you have a detachment from it, you will be able to do it really well. That's why Rahu represents fun and having fun. So if you're detached from that particular area of your life, you're able to have fun, experiment. Let's say I have Rahu Ketu in the 10th and 4th house. 4th house is comforts. So if I have a detachment from comforts and like wanting only specific things, I'm going to have a very hard time in the world out there. 10th house is the external world, right? But if I don't have an attachment to being in a comfortable environment all the time, being cozied and all of those things, my life is going to be easier.
Sure.
And I'm going to be able to accept the grace of Rahu, which Rahu is very graceful. So I'm going to be able to accept, because it's Ma Durga in the chart. So I'm going to be able to accept the grace that Rahu brings in my life without feeling too attached to this personality and my comforts and my want for certain things.
To understand the interplay of both these planets, because बहुत लोगों के लिए तो यही essential होता है, right? If you understand, there's also tons of fear in the market about Rahu and Ketu. But if you were to do this, going from Ketu in the 12th house and to the first, you don't have to discuss Rahu. But just to understand that, what would Ketu in the 12th house mean, 11th, 10th, and so on and so forth? Yeah.
Okay, so Ketu in the 12th house is wasting your prana. And the opposite is 6th house, which means having routine. So these people are generally obsessed with having a routine, doing this, and I need to accomplish certain tasks. 6th house is also the house of enemies, where Rahu thrives. So these people tend to be really good with people. They don't tend to have like a lot of enemies either, because a negative planet plus a slightly negative house, they nullify each other. So Ketu in the 12th house placement is really good for discipline. Then we move Ketu in the 11th house, and the karma over there, 11th house is gains, it's fame, it's all of these achievements that you get from the external world.
And that's easy for people in Ketu in the 11th house?
Yeah, but it's also related. So the 5th, you can't isolate Rahu Ketu. That's the thing. You can't just
watch videos. Ketu in 10 houses karma. Ketu in 12 houses karma. Huh?
Right. They always come together, because 5th house, when you see opposite of the 11th house, 5th house is related to creativity. It's related to intelligence, buddhi. If you can't use your buddhi, you're not going to be able to achieve that level of fame that Ketu is supposed to give you. So there's that. And then there's again 4th and 10th house. This is something I've seen in my own life, where Ketu sits in the 10th house, or Ketu sits in the 10th house. It'll take you to the highest highs of your career. But a lot of people whose charts I've seen with Ketu in the 10th house, they hate their jobs. They would rather just sit at home, read books all day, or go on. They actually are really, really detached from their jobs, which is why they're able to gain really high positions in life. So a lot of people, like I know of this district collector, um, he has a brilliant chart, but Ketu in the 10th house, and Saturn sitting there also. So Saturn's the karka of that particular chart as well. He has no interest in his job. He's just kind of doing it as a service to people.
To mankind, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, like he's just into writing poetry and reading books and doing all of those things. So that's what Ketu over there does. And then in the 9th house.
Wait, you didn't talk about Rahu in the 4th house with Ketu in the 10th house.
So that's what Rahu in the 4th house is, right? He's trying to seek comfort in the home life.
Sure.
He wants to, he has this huge home, but as a district collector, he can't really move around and do, like, he has to leave his home every.
Sure.
So there's no comfort there with Rahu. He's just given it all up. Now he just moves like a vagabond. But Ketu in the 9th house, and then Rahu goes into your 3rd house, then you're really good with speech, you're really good with debate, you don't accept things really easily, so very skeptical people. And then 8th house, Ketu is very comfortable because 8th house is also this house of constant change, constant transformation. And so
So what does that entail? Like what reward has Ketu brought from the past life to be in the 8th house?
Adaptability, just being that's what Rahu in the 2nd house is seeking, right? It's seeking comfort and stability. But if you embody that Ketu nature, which everybody goes through ups and downs in life, but what happens with Rahu in the 2nd house people, again, this thing with comfort, seeking that constantly, wanting that, I need a stable life, I need a stable job, I need to earn so much or I won't be able to survive. So that's what it gives in that 2nd house. And then when Ketu moves in the 7th house, it gives like a lack of desire, I would say, for relationships. I've seen that in a lot of different charts where people are okay with just being by themselves. They're not really keen on, or they're very old school with their approach of dating because Ketu is a bit of a traditionalist as well.
Sure.
So that's what happens with these houses.
But then their Rahu is in the 1st house, which would make them Rahu dominant, I'm assuming?
I don't really subscribe to this dominance idea.
Okay.
I'll be very honest. I think each planet has a role to play in different areas of your life. And so at some point, especially if you're going through a particular dasha, and if you look deep into it, that's where you'll find that planet becoming really dominant in that part of your life. Whereas so if you're going through your Rahu Mahadasha right now, and if your Rahu is placed in a certain place, the karma is to improve Rahu. So there's no such thing as dominance. That's what I believe. But if you do have a stellium, like if you do have multiple planets in one house or something like that, that area of your chart becomes dominant.
So then the question is, what should people focus on in this lifetime? अपने Rahu को strengthen करें, अपने Ketu को strengthen करें. Like what planet should they ignore in this, and what should they focus on?
I think the only planet that needs to be improved for a lot of people is Sun and Moon. Everything else takes care. They're called the king and queen for a reason, right? You pay your taxes to the king and queen, they take care of everybody else. I think a lot of people focus too much on doing remedies, but instead if you just focus on having a basic healthy lifestyle, doing your sadhana on a regular basis and trying to accumulate knowledge, which is what Jupiter is, remembering that...
But that's not Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon is also related to, seeking grace in different ways. It's Shiva and Parvati together.
Sure.
So... The goal of life eventually, it shouldn't be for everybody, but
sure.
In this life we must seek knowledge in order to better ourselves. And so if you keep wanting to seek that, you need Guru's grace or Jupiter's grace.
Yeah. You talked about, in one of your blogs, you were discussing the relationship between the Atma Karaka and the Amatya Karaka.
Yeah.
And you have a little nice chart that perhaps people can follow. I'll make sure we post it in the links. The people I have met, Jyotish friends of mine, and all the ChatGPT generated blogs जो लिखे होते हैं, they say that your Atma Karaka is the most important, or your moon nakshatra, even if it's not the Atma Karaka, is the most important. very differing thoughts across the aisle. But if people were to understand what is the role of the Atma Karaka and the Amatya Karaka, and if people know about it, how do they use it to perhaps better their lives?
Okay, so first of all, Moon Nakshatra is the most important. That goes without saying. Moon Nakshatra and the nodes and your sun. The most important, just
Ascendant Nakshatra की कोई value नहीं होती ऐसे.
value hoti hai, but they'll all lead you to the same thing. Even
Okay.
this Atmakarka thing, it leads you to that same ascendant nakshatra thing. The thing with Atmakarka is also it's the planet that sits at the highest degree in the chart. So it's the oldest planet at the Vriddha Avastha, as we call it in the Avastha system. So now some planets do really well at a Vriddha Avastha. Let's say Saturn. He is an old planet. Rahu. Ketu does not become Atmakarka. So Rahu, if you follow that particular scheme, and then Jupiter, these planets do really well in Avdit Avastha. So, and Sun also, because it's also an old planet, and it's the natural Atmakarka. But some planets find it a little difficult to be in that Vriddha Avastha, and which is why there's like a sort of discongruency between your desire in this life versus what your duties are, and you feel very conflicted in general. Which is why it's best to focus on the moon nakshatra, because the more you focus on it, or you focus on the moon, everything else take care. It sort of sorts itself out.
What's the relationship between the Atmakaraka and the Amatya Karaka though?
Atmakarka is the sort of thing your soul is seeking in this life, and Amatya Karka is the soul's helper. So, like in that particular blog post, I talked about Krishna and Arjuna, okay? And Krishna acts as the Sarthi for Arjuna in, to achieve a certain goal, which is to fight the war. Because Arjuna was refusing to do that in the Bhagavad Gita.
Sure.
And so that's how your Amatya Karka helps you. Now, if there's like an enmity between those two planets, that can also cause a little bit of a problem.
Like imagine someone has a Sun Atmakaraka and a Saturn Amatya Karaka.
I do.
You do have that. I did not know. Okay, I was going to ask you about Sun and Saturn. So then what happens?
I guess because they're father and son, they'll have this, as all fathers and sons do, they have their own problems. But there's a lot of things that are actually very similar between them. For example, Sun admires, punctuality and like the passage of time, and everything is related to the sun. And then Saturn's similar in that way as well, where it keeps a track of your karma. It, is the slow one, but it values a lot of prana. So Sun and Saturn are similar in that way as well.
You mentioned prana a lot. Prana, what is prana?
Prana is a little different than air. So anything that gives life to air is what prana is. That's why, so let's say there's air in the physical sense, but it's not really doing anything. But if you breathe it and it's enlivening you in some way, that's what prana is. And so our body that's closest to God is the pranamaya kosha, the sheath. So we're in the food body, and then there's this pranic body that we have that's closest to God.
So अगर मैं प्राणायाम करूँगा या फिर मैं meditation करूँगा सांस वाली, जिसको आप बोल रहे थे breath work, if I do that, then perhaps am I strengthening my pranic body? Am I getting that right?
Yes, that is correct. Pranayama basically means to hold your prana. Shani is the Ayush Karka, which means the one who gives you a longer life. And so that's why he's Yama literally means the Lord of Death, and Yama is also related to Saturn. So pranayama basically means to be able to hold your breath. Have you ever seen like a pigeon breathe? They breathe very
I hate
quickly.
pigeons, huh?
They breathe very quickly. It's because they can hold only so much prana. But as you get deeper into pranayama, you can hold your breath for longer periods of time. And that's the key to immortality.
हाँ, मुझे आई रिमेंबर बचपन में मेरे नाना जी ने मुझे एक ऐसी मेडिटेशन सिखाने की कोशिश करी थी, दैट आई स्टिल रिमेंबर, जहाँ उन्होंने बोला आप सांस लो एंड देन यू सॉर्ट ऑफ स्क्वीज योर स्पिंक्टर एंड यू ऑल आई डोंट नो, कान भी बंद कर लो, क्या करो, इट्स टू सॉर्ट ऑफ जस्ट होल्ड द ब्रेथ इन वेरी स्ट्रांगली. I didn't understand it back then, but he was trying to teach me how to hold the breath for long.
Yeah, it's called a Mula Bandha. So there's like 3 areas in our body where you can do a bandha. So there's this Mula Bandha at the base of your spine. Then there's the bandha you can do at your throat. And then there's the bandha you can do at the Agnya Chakra. So that's the final one. And that's also really helpful in gaining certain yogic powers and stuff.
Why did you become a Jyotish?
Me, I think at first it was again like to help people, but now it's just become a way to prove myself wrong in a lot of ways. I just like to, have fun with God.
Does Jyotish go against your own natural instinct sometimes?
Yeah, a lot of times, and there's been a lot of times, where your faith can be very shakeable, but you kind of have to bring yourself back. That's the whole cycle of life.
यार तूने एक आर्टिकल लिखा था अबाउट समथिंग अलोंग द लाइंस ऑफ द अनबर्डनिंग ऑफ योर सेल्फ थ्रू सैटर्न.
Yes.
मैंने रॉबर्ट सबोटा की वो किताब पढ़ी हुई है, द ग्रेटनेस ऑफ सैटर्न. आई रियली एंजॉयड दैट बुक. फैंटास्टिक बुक बाय द वे. To me, and perhaps this is collected through probably months and years of watching videos about Saturn, as हर कोई इंसान एक्सप्लेन करता है कि शनि ये है, शनि वो है, शनि ये है, शनि वो है. The words that resonate the most in my mind is discipline, death, delay, disappointment. मतलब जो भी सारी ये painful D's हैं, right? All of that I resonate with, like that I associate with Shani. As someone who's not a practitioner, who's not a Jyotish, but someone who just consume this a lot. You said कि Saturn enables lightness, or Saturn is lightness itself.
Yeah.
And you should not take yourself too seriously. Now, I would assume कोई ड्यूटी बाउंड इंसान है, इसके ऊपर शनि सवार है, जिसको गुलामी का बहुत शौक है, जो मतलब ड्यूटी बाउंड एकदम बंधा हुआ है डिसिप्लिन के अंदर. I found that a little strange.
So that's the thing, right? It's about perspective. And so you said Saturn represents death. Do you find death to be like a really burdensome thing?
No, I mean,
Death
for
is a
many
relief
it's-
from the body,
Sure.
right? And so that's what Saturn gives you in the long term. If you can, that's what pranayama also does, right? It gives you a relief from this constant in and out of that prana. Once you are able to hold it in, and you are able to hold it in for a long period of time, it gives you some kind of relief. It gives you lightness in your own being. So that's what Saturn is. It's a planet that is supposed to unburden all you from your karmas constantly. It's a very graceful planet, and all of these people who are duty bound or feel like they're bound to something, that's also a doing of Saturn, but it is up to you to release yourself from that. Nobody's going to come to your aid in this life at least.
I don't understand. What do you mean कि it is up to you to release yourself from your own duties? Like,
Not from your duties, but to detach yourself from this idea that I need to be doing this in order to make so and so person happy, or I need to be doing this. So having a sense of non-attachment to your, this idea of you being very limited because you're bound by this duty. That's what happened with Bhishma Pitama, if you've read the Mahabharata, which I'm sure you have.
I have not. No,
You've read Amiganatha's
I've just
book,
read
right?
her book, yes.
Yeah.
But I've not read the text as is.
So Bhishma Pitama's story is just that. He's feeling like he's constantly bound by duty, where he sort of gives up on dharma, which is dharma in the sense like swadharma, anything that is sustainable in some sense. So if you're constantly bound by duty, but everything else in your life is falling apart, that's not sustainable.
I can relate with that.
So you need to have that's what Saturn brings. It exalts in Libra. So it brings that sense of balance. That's what it's supposed to do in your life.
There is also much talk about debilitated planets, where many people are scared from debilitation. Yet I have, again, through videos and texts, found that debilitation का मतलब शायद ये होता है कि लोग ज़्यादा मेहनत करते हैं उस एरिया के अंदर. Perhaps you can illuminate what debilitation does across the planets.
Possible, but I don't like to use the words. So when we go back to a traditional text and something, or even if we read in Hindi, we call the debilitated planets Neech.
Neech.
Yeah. And
it's a derogatory word, of course.
No, Neech means down.
Acha.
And Uch means up.
Okay.
So if you've ever seen a tree, there's a low-hanging fruit and there's a fruit that's up. What takes more time to get to?
The
The fruit
that
that's
is up
really,
there.
yeah. So that's what an exalted planet is. People actually have a harder time with exalted planets because you can't do but be yourself. Debilitated planets are actually a lot more adaptable in this life.
Okay.
They're like low-hanging fruit, so you get a lot of their effects very easily.
तो फिर आप ये लोग ये कि बोलते हैं यार डेबिलिटेटेड है, इसका दिमाग खराब रहेगा, ये डेबिलिटेटेड है, इसका सुख नहीं रहेगा, ये डेबिलिटेड है, इसकी माँ का सुख नहीं रहेगा.
I think there's just a lack of education about these things because if you learn from a proper guru, everybody says Ucha Nicha, and I've come from Pandit Sanjay Rajji's lineage and I'm studying there and everything. So even with like other teachers that I've come across in my life, they all don't have this very, and in general, I think Jyotish is very bastardized in a lot of ways by
Sure.
these people who constantly want to keep people scared. Kal Sarp dosh, Mangal dosh, this dosh, that dosh. So it happens.
If we could still go through debilitation through the planets, perhaps we would understand this a little bit better.
Okay, so let's say Saturn is debilitated in Aries, lack of patience. Saturn is a very patient planet. That's why in Libra it's able to, slow down, relax, and all of those things. So the fruit over there for Saturn is to, be completely balanced and be completely harmonized, not take it too much, just do things at the right time. Saturn and Aries, they have this thing that they need to hurry up. So in one way, that's also really good in Kali Yuga to have Saturn and Aries because you can do things very quickly.
पर उसमें वो नहीं बनेगी friction. You have a sign that's fast moving initiation and you've got a planet that's super slow.
That's where the trouble is, right? You do something too quickly and then you're like, Arey, why did I do this? I should have waited. Even when it comes to paying for things or, people with Saturn in Libra or like Saturn in different placements would sort of wait and be like, I'll wait for a discount and then I'll pay for it. Saturn in Aries would be like, okay, I'm just going to go pay for it. I can't stand being uncomfortable in any way. So that's what Saturn's debilitation can do. But it also gets your work done really quickly. So if you want someone who is really fast at what they're supposed to be doing, 4 घंटे का काम 1 घंटे में कर देंगे. Saturn's debilitation is
Human
like
AI.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Humans have intelligence.
I'm sure.
AI की ज़रूरत नहीं है. And then there's Mercury. So Venus is one of my other favorite planets. Venus, when it's in Pisces, they love spending money. They just lose money. Pisces is the 12th house, right? So they just love.
ये exalted की बात कर रहे हो.
हाँ. So they also don't maintain themselves really well because they don't have that, that
Like
knack of trying to nitpick themselves and say like, oh, I'm going to be in public, I should behave myself in a certain way. They're kind of just
Unbehaved
like
people.
Yeah. In a lot of ways. But that's how that's why they're adaptable, right? So they can find comfort wherever they go. Venus in Virgo, on the other hand, very nitpicky.
This is
as a
debilitated.
placement. Yeah, debilitated Venus is very, very nitpicky about exactly what they want. So if you see someone with Venus in Virgo, they'll be decked up, not a hair out of sight or anything like that. And then there's Moon, of course. So there's a debilitated Moon, which is, you have to seek out comforts in this world by yourself. Moon is debilitated in Jyeshtha Nakshatra. And so Jyeshtha actually means the wise one. In the tradition I come from, Jyeshtha is a goddess that she's the wise one that holds everything in. And she kind of makes you contemplate about things. When you look at the moon's exaltation, which is Kritika, it's not Rohini. Rohini is the favorite wife, but Kritika is the exaltation nakshatra. And it's all about constantly doing. Spending all of your prana or your mind's energy outwards. And so I find Jyeshtha moons to be very, very contemplative. And that's why it's one of the placements for success as well in life.
But that doesn't explain moon debilitated. It talks about the nakshatra, I'm sure. But like, agar वैसे moon debilitated होता है, what does it mean? What's the struggle or what's the low-hanging fruit?
So the struggle is, so with Scorpio, they're very suspicious about it talks more about the Rashi, but like Scorpions are generally very suspicious about other people. Moon is a planet that's not, it just seeks comfort. And so over here in Scorpio, it becomes a little, it starts holding itself back from trusting too many people or getting them to do a lot of things. Whereas Moon in Kritika, it's easy to delegate tasks and ask people to do different things.
Then what's the reward for moon debilitation then?
I think the reward is that you're careful around people. That's why debilitated planets work in Kali Yuga, right? You're not, back in the day, if you're in Satyuga or Dwapar Yuga or something, it's
Sure.
slightly easier to trust people. And if someone says, this is my word and I'm giving it to you, you're like, okay. But now it's not so easy.
So it creates paranoia.
It does. That's sort of
Yeah.
the side effect of that placement.
What about the rest of the planets?
Jupiter's debilitation is in Capricorn, so it asks you. So these people are really, really creative and extremely philosophical, because only in limitation, this is one of the favorite debilitation placements I see in a chart, where someone has Jupiter in Capricorn, because they can take whatever small amounts of things that they have and they sort of grow out of nowhere. It's just, they can grow out of limitation. And so that's such a beautiful thing to have, because even when you have less, you can do a lot more for other people, for society, generally, everyone.
As opposed to the exaltation, which is
Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, which is nice in its own way because it gives you a lot of comforts and everything. But because you're so used to these things, you tend to be a little orthodox and you're like, okay, I'm not going to share my stuff with people. It kind of happens like.
you protect your knowledge almost.
Yeah, because again, fourth house is
Right.
me and mine and my family and my land and my cars and all of those things. So
Sure. What about sun debilitation?
Sun's debilitation happens. So there's Sun with enemy signs, and then there's Sun's debilitation in Libra, which is actually a very romantic kind, because when Sun's in exaltation in Aries, people are only seeing you on an external basis, and they're not really they're kind of intimidated by you with Sun in Aries. With Sun in Libra, it's a more social placement. And it's also when the sun is setting, you get to see it for what it is, right? And it's very romantic and very beautiful. This is something said by my teacher. He loves a debilitated sun placement. However, these people tend to waste too much energy in trying to please other people. So all of their prana is, I need to please my wife, number one. I need to please my girlfriend. I need to have 5 girlfriends, 6 girlfriends, etc. Polycule. That's what and Sun in Taurus does the same thing as well. It's an enemy sign still.
Okay. What about you can't have Rahu and Ketu debilitated because that doesn't exist, right?
It depends. Like, there's different schools of thoughts about this. Some people say that Rahu is exalted in Virgo, which is why it's doing one thing consistently and getting results. But I don't really go by that school of thought. And some people say Ketu is exalted in Scorpio, which is where you get Moon's debilitation. So
Sure.
that teaches you a lot about the nature of Ketu and the Moon. But yeah, I don't really think the.
So we're left with Mercury and Mars. I think we've covered Venus, Sun, Moon, Jupiter.
Yeah. I talk about Mercury in Pisces a lot, mainly because some of the most sort of misunderstood people, despite being extremely verbose, are Mercury in Pisces. They'll talk a lot, but nobody will get them. That's why they're extremely creative. They build like really nice fantasy worlds, and they have this beautiful knack of storytelling. But then at one point, you're kind of like, what is this person talking about? And then we have Mercury in Virgo, which is Swaprakasha. So Mercury is the only planet that exalts in its own sign. And when we say Swaprakasha, it means self-illumined in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And so Mercury in its exaltation is just fantastic. Like, it's the best placement to have in your chart, hands down. It makes you very earthly. It makes you very practical. But the goal over here is to stop your mind from racing at such a speed, because that can happen with Virgo Rashi. They can be very self-critical in a lot of ways. And then we have Mars. So Mars debilitates in Cancer, which means emotional outbursts, are normal. We're currently having Mars in Cancer right now in the sky. You can actually see it in that particular constellation. But Mars in Cancer is good for getting things out of your system, just like letting loose and just telling people.
No grudges.
Yeah.
No grudges left.
Just telling
nice sleep.
people. And then if Mars is exalted, which is in Capricorn, it is very disciplined, it's very, focused. But then these people fall into the pattern of just doing what is told to them. No leadership energy. That's what happens with Mars in Capricorn. They kind of just go by direction.
Siddhi, tell me something. ऐसे कुछ like do people work against their charts? And for example, अगर आपके chart में कोई specific placement and it's asking you to perhaps transform or adapt, but you refuse to. Like how do we bring peace and alignment with our charts into our lives so that they work with us as opposed to against us?
I think the first step would be to stop using internet astrology and just going back to the source, because what a lot of people think is that, oh, I have this placement, so I am supposed to be a certain way, and then that sort of blocks their perception off from learning more about that particular placement. So instead of consuming a lot of astrology content, I really encourage self-study, going out, finding out for yourself if something works out for you, because 90% of the time it is just someone else's perspective and you take it as, this is nectar and I'll drink it, but it's actually poison for you. So you have to be very careful with what you're consuming.
Sure.
And so if you want peace and alignment, best to sort of cut yourself off from trying to consume a lot of this content, because this is spiritual junk food in a lot of ways. In one of the vasanas we have in this life is Shastra Vasana. No, just know things. I need to know from this person, I need to know from that person.
Shastra Vasana. Shastra is weapons, right?
Yeah, Shastra. Shastra means the Shastras that we have.
Shastra. Oh, sorry. Whatever you're
Shastra
saying.
is weapon.
Shastra.
Shastra is the books. So Shastra Vasana is one of the things we need to learn from, to detach from.
I'm a practitioner of Shastra Vasana. That's what I do for a living.
So it can be good because this is a deep vasana you have. You've lived it out in your life. It can be good and helpful, but at some point of time, it will go away on its own. Then you won't have this sort of crazy desire for desire for knowledge.
Yeah.
And attaching yourself to be like, oh, because I am someone because of the knowledge I've attained in this life.
Sure.
Because you're beyond that.
I'm up to here with other people's knowledge.
You're actually beyond any knowledge that you gain in this life. You're beyond, because this is the knowledge that we attain from other people, read from books. It's very limited. The greatest knowledge you can have is the knowledge of the self. And so you can only experience it and not know it per se.
Got it. I'm going to read out something from your blog and I want your comments on it. You say this of Lakshmi. She is known to be Triptam Tarpayantim, which means she who is so satisfied, there are no ends to how much she can give. भारत एक ऐसा देश है जहाँ पे लोग मतलब पागली जुनून से लक्ष्मी की पूजा करते हैं, डरते भी हैं, और घर में लक्ष्मी आई है, अब लक्ष्मी की पूजा हो रही है, अरे आप मोटे हो रहे हो, आप पे अच्छा पैसा आ रहा है, लक्ष्मी आप पे मेहरबान है, राइट? I think beyond proper Lakshmi Pujan in a temple or in your own house temple, we talk about Lakshmi primarily through the lens of money. पैसा जिसके पास आ रहा है उसके quote unquote Venus अच्छा है या whatever. But since you, like you said, you do a devotional Devi centric form of Jyotish, I would love for you to help me understand fundamentally what is Lakshmi.
Lakshmi is literally the goal. And the goal of anybody's life differs from person to person. So some person's goal could be dharma, some could be artha, which is gaining money. Artha also means meaning, to make a meaningful life for yourself. Kama, to enjoy yourself, enjoy the luxuries of life. And then there's moksha. So in the Mahalakshmi Ashtakam, we call her Bhukti Mukti Pradayini. So she offers you all of these things, like all of the luxuries of this world and everything. But she'll also give you mukti, which means to liberate yourself or to be not. So the biggest kind of freedom or the biggest kind of liberation you have is when you're not attached to all of the things you own. So there's this very beautiful story in the Devi Bhagavatam where Shuka, who is Rishi Parashara's son, he sort of goes up to his father and he's just like, I want to liberate. I don't have a desire for anything. And Parashara was like, sorry, Rishi Vyas, my bad, I got confused with
That's
those two. But he went up to his father and he's just like, I want to liberate. I don't want to live this life. This is just foolish, everything. And he's just like, you can do that, but you have to go through that grihast ashram, which means to live your life as a grihastha and then move into sannyas and be free to do that. And so there's like a huge argument that happens between them where Shuka is like, no, women are bondage, women are suffering, having a renunciate's life is so much better. And so Vyas gets tired and he eventually gives up and he's just like, okay, do one thing, go to the king of Mithila, Janaka, which is Sita's father, and see how he runs his kingdom. And so Shuka was just like, how will this king help me out in any way? Like, he's just a man who's indulged in these things in the world and constantly running a kingdom, and he has a wife and he has children and all of those things. So, so like, just go, see how it goes. Shuka reaches Mithila and then he sees Raja Janak and he's just like, my dad sent me here. I don't know what for.
Yeah, I'm the boss's son, मेरी internship है, बता क्या करना है.
And he's just like, he's berating Raja Janak first. He's just like, what would you know? What can you teach me? And Shuka is one of the most learned scholars. This guy is just like, what? Despite being in this world, I am so unattached to this being mine. And so our primary problem in this world is to own things. And he's just satisfied with being himself. And so Raja Janak says this very beautiful thing where he's just like, even if I was a hermit, even if I was a sannyasin, I would just do fine. I'm a king now and I'm running a kingdom and everything and I'm still, attached. You're a sannyasin. You want to be a sannyasin. That's a desire for moksha. You're still attached to that one particular type of moksha. And that sort of opened up Shuka's eyes and he fell to his knees and he's just like, you are my guru. So and then he goes back home and then he goes back to his father and he's like, I'm ready to get married. Get me a wife. Let's have kids and everything. So that's the thing with a lot of people is where this Lakshmi, this sort of, also thinking that Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth when she actually grants you satisfaction to just be as you are, wherever you are, no matter what. That is real Lakshmi. When you are completely content in the state you are now, that is real beauty of Lakshmi.
The only difficulty I find in this is that now do I appease the goddess Lakshmi? Do I appease to Shiva? Who do I lie prostrate for?
They're all the same. There's no difference between Lakshmi or Shiva.
On one hand, you would want कि अच्छा मुझे अब ये इस चीज़ का वरदान मिले या मैं ये वाली चीज़ करूँ, then I'm perhaps will be better off, Then how do you perhaps let Lakshmi enter your life?
I guess so in Lakshmi Tantra, they talk about a lot of ways, and one of the ways is gifting things, austerity, cleaning things up, being just like a very simple, content person. That is one of the ways you let Lakshmi into your life, to just be content with what you have and not be greedy. Because a lot of times, I see this a lot, not just in India, but around the world, where, uske paas kuch hai, to mujhe bhi chahiye. And then I will make sure that the other person's life is not as good as mine. This constant envy. And not really thinking for yourself what is it that you truly desire. That's where a problem stems from as well, where you are so attracted to what other people are doing. Like you go on Instagram, you scroll. You're like, arey, mujhe bhi Maldives jana hai vacation ke liye. I want to go here, I want to go there. But you don't really sit and think for yourself, is this what you truly want out of your life? And so that's a very inauthentic way of living. That's why Lakshmi is about being content with the present time. Venus is the planet that sort of unites is the Yoga Karka in the chart. So
What is
having
the Yoga Karka? I don't know.
yoga means union.
Okay.
So having a constant union with the current self and the current time that you're going through is what Venus is about. That yoga, to be completely okay and content, that's what Lakshmi is about. So if you're constantly, on social media trying to look for things, people do a lot. That's how ads influence you and stuff like that. But yeah, I think people should just sort of get off of social media. It would help a lot.
If you were not on social media, I wouldn't have found you.
It's a great tool. I have Venus Rahu conjunction, so I am supposed to be on social media. It's one of the asanas, I guess.
ऐसे थोड़ी होता है. I mean, like, I think if you attach this Vasana lens to everything, perhaps aren't you going to be racked with guilt?
Honestly, I'm not too upset about I didn't even really think that I would get a certain number of followers. I'll make this my career or nothing like that. I had no such intention. You know what I used to do in the beginning of my astrology career, I guess? I would go up to people I'd find interesting and I would ask them to give me
$5 tarot reading.
नहीं पैसे बिना पैसे के free. It was just my love for astrology and I would do. And even now, like sometimes if someone's coming in with like a genuine need, I would do it for free. This is a bad thing to say right now.
That's okay. That's okay.
But yeah,
If people come to you, you can say whatever I said on those casts was just for my उस वक्त का ख्याल था, लेकिन अब ख्याल बदल चुका है.
go buy a reading on stream astrology. But yeah, so I used to just I don't have like an attachment with my social media presence that I have to be a certain way. This is just who I am, and I don't alter it for social media, or I don't focus too much on my image or anything like that.
Yeah, there is something that you wrote in your blog, which I found, this is a very strange thing, and I could be wrong for saying this, so apologies in advance. You linked goddess Saraswati to Kama, right? So I don't know what that means. Is that sex? Is that union? Is Saraswati, the goddess of education, related to Kama?
So if you read any of the Kama Shastras, not Kama Sutra, but Kama Shastras.
What's the difference? Kama Sutra is written by some dude.
It is one of the Kama Shastras. Shastras means a collection of treatises. So Kama Shastras include Koka Shastra, and then there's Rati Rahasya. There's a lot of books about understanding Kama. Kama essentially is pleasure, desire, anything that we seek in this life. Even if you have like a slightest desire, that is Kama.
So it's not just sex. It's not like people typically say ki Kama is sex. Huh?
No, not at all. Kama is, I think we've just reduced dharma, artha, kama, moksha to so things. But Kama is so beautiful. Like if you look at the goddess Kameshwari, she's sort of just like a representation of how the mind is bound to this world, because it's so sweet and it's constantly desiring this world. She holds a sugarcane bow, and she has which has a string of bees and everything, just like Kamadeva. And so when I say Saraswati is related to Kama, Saraswati is the birth of desire. When the first word was spoken, that was desire, Vak itself. So when you think that you want something, that is Saraswati.
Okay.
Because you won't be able to condense things into I want so and so things without Saraswati's help, without having a knowledge.
It's the first image or arousal for something, perhaps.
Yeah. So without having that knowledge of your desire, you would not be able to know what is it that you really desire. That's why Saraswati is so important.
So it's almost like knowledge helps you name your desires.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly that. And so when you know your desire, that's the end. Then you can just play around with whatever's going on.
One could even perhaps go as far as saying that this is what got us out from the monkey age to the age we're in right now, because we could name the things around us and say, I want a wheel, or I want fire or food, as opposed to whatever, just acting on a biological impulse.
Yeah.
That is what separates perhaps a scholar from a brute.
So when Brahma created Kamadeva, the next creation was Saraswati. in the form Shatarupa, which means she who has 100 forms. And because she had 100 changing forms, because our desires are constantly changing, Brahma got so attracted to her. Shata it does not only mean 100, but it also means more than hundreds or hundreds of forms or something like that. But Brahma, as this Trimurti, which is the creator, he got so attracted to her because she represented all forms of being. There's this particular mantra in the Rig Veda called the Vak Suktam, and she talks about how she's the very air, Aham Vata. And so she talks about she's the very air that is present in all of life, whether animate, inanimate, everything.
You were saying?
Yeah, and so Saraswati is really important for that.
So then that begs the question, if Saraswati is the naming of desires and if Rahu is desires, what's the link?
Of Saraswati and desires?
Of Rahu?
And Saraswati?
I would assume कि Rahu के लिए एक synonymous word ये भी होता that it is desire itself.
Yeah, you could say that. And one of the Saraswati yogas you can have in your chart is with the presence of Rahu also there with Jupiter and Mercury and other planets as well. I think that the connection is just that your desires are also sort of limited. You can only enjoy something for a certain period of time. After that, the desire for that thing also falls away. Which is why Rahu is one of our spiritual protectors, right? Because they say, with Rahu, like your delusion falls and then you feel really bad about things.
Sure.
But spiritually, it is supposed to protect you. You're not supposed to have... It depends. It's not absolute, but your desire for everything is only very, very limited. And then the best desire to have is the desire for God. And all desires are eventually leading to that area anyway.
Allegedly. I mean, for some people that isn't... Some people don't really desire God. Some people desire
No, but like
things.
even if you don't desire God, all desires lead to God.
What does that mean?
If you have so you've seen Maslow's need hierarchy, right?
Self-actualization at the top, yeah.
Yeah, that's just self-realization. It talks a lot about that. But you need to have your basic sort of vasanas fulfilled. You need to have your basic desires fulfilled in order to reach God, or else you're not going to be able to. Someone who represses even those like food, sex, what else was that? Shelter. Even if you repress those, they'll come out at some point. If not in this life, in another life.
What's the placements for deep desire repression?
I think Saturn does that. He's kind of a little. He holds you back in a lot of ways if you desire, which is why, like, if you look at people who have who are constantly yearning about things and writing music about yearning for things and everything, Saturn is prominent over there.
It isn't that they're highly creative, it's the other way around. It's that perhaps they're repressed from doing what they really want to do.
It's also because limitation births creativity, right? Only when you are limited in some way, when you feel like you're away from someone, that's when it creates a lot of desire.
Sure.
That's why, Shiva Shakti separated from each other in the first place. We always viewed them as Ardhanarishwara. That's the correct form. But they separated from each other in first place so that creation could take place.
I have another question for you. You said in one of your blogs, the body is the deity and the home is the shrine, right? मतलब, by the way, very good line. ऐसे किसी को आप कोर्ट पे लिख दो कि body is the deity, उस पे आ जाएंगे 500-600 likes. क्या line बोलिए, wow. But the way I understood this is I've always found a correlation, and this is scientifically proven a dozen times. Like, अगर आपकी body के अंदर repressed emotions hain, or if your body's a little out of tune, you tune that out, you work out, you stretch, or you hold certain difficult yoga poses. It also cures you of major mental illnesses, right? Not schizophrenia, something like that, but आपको अगर तनाव हो रहा है, आपको depression है, if you have anxiety, if you don't feel good, just using the body and stretching it and perhaps strengthening it in various ways allows you that clarity of mind where you form a union between the body and the mind, if you believe in the idea of duality. But what did you mean by this?
I actually meant keep your house clean.
Okay.
Keep your rooms really clean. I don't know if you know Marie Kondo.
हाँ वो
So,
जो Japanese bestseller है.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she actually wrote one of the most spiritual texts. I think it's a Upanishad of the recent times called "The Art of Tidying Up." She talks about keeping things that only spark joy, and she mentions this concept.
Should I have to clean half the studio then? There's so much shit here.
Yeah, and so if you have a neat environment, if you have a clean environment, your mind is less likely to be cluttered.
But tidying up is such a process. You have to do it all the time. It's
Yeah,
like you have
but
to
that's
constantly
the
be vigilant to keep things clean.
But that's the beauty of having a sixth house, right? Because you have all of these things that have been given to you, you get to take care of them.
What?
Yeah, you get to take care of your possessions in a proper way. That's what cleaning is, right? You have this possession, you're cleaning it, you're taking care of
You're
it.
saying cleaning is the remedy for the 6th house.
It's the remedy for Venus. Best
Okay.
remedy for Venus is to clean. And it's a remedy for Saturn, and it's a remedy for the moon, because then you're engaged in a task and focused on it. Yeah, cleaning is just great.
All right, I didn't expect to hear that, but what is tantric astrology?
Tantric Jyotish, I won't talk a lot about it because it's a closed sort of...
Gupta Vidya hai.
yeah, it is Gupta Vidya, but it basically uses your body as the birth chart and the sort of
You have to
impediments.
talk about this. You have to reveal this, please.
The impediments that you have in your body can be seen as certain sort of planetary issues that you might have. So they
Okay.
don't really often look at, your chart, but they look at your breath. So your prana is measured. Then some of them look at your tongue and see how much dirt is on your tongue. Then your physical body, if it's fit or not, shows a lot. So Tantric Jyotish uses certain upayas or certain remedies to counteract those things. And so when you do those remedies, and they're quite quick, because that's the whole point of Tantra, is to focus your mind and body together.
You have to give me more examples. So, for example, अगर किसी की गर्दन में दर्द है, so what does that mean?
Go to a doctor. That's all I need.
No, listen, I really must know about this. So, how would a tantric Jyotish, and in your own experience, perhaps, look at the body and tell you about the afflictions and then remediate them?
I think sometimes if you have like chronic pain, it can show up as certain issues or certain samskaras that have been stored in that area. For example, they say that women hold a lot of trauma in their hips. We actually hold trauma in a lot of different areas. So in your shoulders, you hold a lot of anger. In your hips, you hold a lot of repressed things. In your... If someone's constantly like having a hunchback, they're very burdened by their life. There are tells that you can
Give me
see
all
a
the tells.
person.
I want all the tells.
Teeth, number one. So if you see someone who has like crooked teeth or bad teeth in general, that's actually a Rahu affliction. Bad teeth equal to back pain. The mouth is connected to the spine. Also have a lack of control over their mouth. That's what Rahu does, right? It just says whatever. It's the karka for harsh speech. So you can tell a lot by their teeth. There's like a lot of signs in medical astrology by people's hair. So if someone has a lot of like very scanty hair, balding is a common problem amongst men especially. In some superstitions, they say that balding men are related to, gaining more Lakshmi or anything like that. But it's just a loss of virya or testosterone in some ways.
Really? You could also say that with age. As men age, they lose testosterone because they don't work out enough, and they also
They
lose
don't
their
maintain
hair.
themselves. Right?
Sure. What else?
I think that's enough for now.
No, I really insist, because I've not found a single person जिसने पहले tantric astrology की बात करी है.
Yeah, it's a very Gupta Vidya, and there's a lot of relation to the Dasamahavidyas as well.
What are the 10 Mahavidyas?
So there's this very cute story of Shiva and Parvati. So one day Shiva was meditating, and Parvati was sort of like bothering him for attention. And he's just like, stop it. I'm so annoyed by you constantly wanting attention and constant stimulation. And she's just like, but, hang out with me, talk to me. And this is their favorite thing to do. They just tell each other stories all the time. And so Shiva is like, okay, I'm sick of this. I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to a place where you don't exist. And so she's just like, cool. He gets up, starts walking, and then wherever he sees, he just sees Parvati's face. So if he looks at the mountains, she's standing there as Durga. If he's looking at the water, she's emerging from a lotus like Tara. And so in all 10 directions, because there are 10 directions, all of these goddesses exist and they reveal themselves to Shiva. So these 10 goddesses, the Mahavidyas, are the 10 different ways of worshipping the goddess. Vidya literally means mantra. A feminine mantra is known as a Vidya. And so she encircles him and he's just like, fine, I give up. You are everywhere. So wherever Shiva goes, Shakti is always going to be present.
What's the relation to Tantric astrology though?
Yeah, because the Mahavidya, so the fourth Mahavidya we worship, or fifth one, I think the fifth one, is known as Bhuvaneshwari. So whenever you want to do upayas with Tantric Jyotish, you actually approach these Mahavidyas for certain kind of boons, or like, ask them, sort of do their sadhana as remedy.
How can one find a Tantric Jyotish if they were interested?
They're mostly in the Kerala tradition. It's actually, because it's a Gupta Vidya, a lot of them are in the Kerala tradition.
Is that perhaps more effective than like a regular BP, HS, Lal Kitab astrologer?
Lal Kitab is actually very similar to Tantric. A lot of upayas that they've mentioned in Lal Kitab are very similar to Tantric Jyotish. The whole, putting a silver coin under your pillow and doing all of those. It's a very out there text, but it's Tantric in nature. But you have to have a very discerning eye to get that.
Talking about a discerning eye, say someone comes to you over a Zoom call, because you live in Dubai. I'm not sure if you see clients like physically.
Sometimes.
But sometimes you do them, right? So when you do that, can you tell what planet or what affliction dominates this person when you first meet them?
It's very easy, and the first sign is sort of the way they speak, because your second house is everything. It's your face, it's the way you speak, everything. So it's usually very normal to know people. You say the first word, I know exactly what's in your chart that's causing it.
But perhaps
it's also the way you speak about things. So if someone has a very sort of negative outlook towards life, they're crying about their life, even though everything in the chart is fine, you know exactly what's causing that. Or if someone has like a really, quiet way, they're just kind of quiet throughout, because that happens a lot. Some people are just quiet throughout the reading sessions. I know what they are and what causes that particular, I wouldn't say affliction, but that disposition, that's the word.
At the risk of becoming very conscious myself, can you tell what am I dominated by planet-wise, or what are my afflictions?
You have really big eyes, Rahu. So strong, you're just like staring. And obviously Jupiter is very prominent, because you do seek a lot of knowledge in this world. So
I've heard very different things. Someone has said very Sun and Saturn dominant. So that is why I'm like, I don't know what's the truth.
I think Jupiter is very, it's there. It's like very present with you.
Sure.
Because there's this desire to seek knowledge, right? And you're constantly using your voice to do that. Jupiter is the voice. It's the sort of words we say to people. And and you're skillful at that. You're skillful at asking people the exact questions that lead you to have that.
You can tell by looking at people, by how they walk, how they talk.
I don't look at people that... I'm actually really bad at this. I don't really enjoy phrenology, but I kind of enjoy it when I'm like in a closed setting and someone wants to do a party trick or something. This is my party trick.
So this is a party trick. No, but ऐसा होता है ना, लोग बोलते हैं there is something called face astrology where you...
Yeah, there's face reading.
Face reading, yeah. Is that legit?
So one of my cousins, he actually guessed my he's into face readings and everything, and he actually guessed what my birth nakshatra was just by looking at my face. And it's not a very prominent nakshatra that you can see in my face, but he was just like, oh, is it that? And I was just like, yeah.
That's crazy. So
it is real to some extent, but again, like It's sort of Samudrik Shastra, where you have to touch because in certain face readings or palmistry, all of those things, they're known as impure in some ways because you have to touch people, which changes their energy. Whereas Jyotish, you have to just look at a chart and be away from someone.
My only problem with not necessarily Jyotish, but what it's like, I'm not sure if the marijuana to other drugs argument is legitimate, but it's certainly something to think about, where people say marijuana is a gateway drug to perhaps stronger, harder drugs. Two schools of thought. I think when people say in their bios, Jyotish, healer, Reiki, numerology, tarot, I begin to lose trust in any of the things they do. Because it seems to me कि you've taken Jyotish Vidya, basics, and then you've added certificate courses on top that you've done over the weekend. And so you're just trying to figure out how is the maximum way to make money through any possible, outlook. That is what I have a problem with. But I have many friends who will perhaps not take Jyotish seriously, but believe in their palmist. Not take palmistry seriously, but really swear by tarot cards, which I personally think that bogus, right? In this world, how does a discerning person understand what is the right counsel to seek?
I think if you're generally, if you're already a discerning person, you know what you're doing. But if you're curious, I think start to look for things for yourself and start doing all of this stuff before you expend a lot of money trying to seek counsel from other people. Because this is like the easy way out. A lot of people who don't want to work on themselves just kind of, throw money at the problem, which is not supposed to be the case. You're supposed to have to go through that trouble of learning some kind of knowledge and
Sure.
knowing what it is and applying it and seeing it for yourself instead of, just immediately. And also these people who do a lot of these courses, they're very troubled. In their heart, it is a very troubling thing because you're not being able to stick to one kind of sadhana. Any kind of dedication you have towards a way of, divination tool or anything like that, it's a sadhana. Jyotish is a sadhana in itself. But if you're not able to stick by it and if you're not able to deepen it, there's no point. It's the same with people who use like a lot of mantras. One day they're chanting this mantra, one day it's the other mantra, one day it's this sadhana, one day it's that. It's like digging too many wells, but they're very shallow.
Yeah,
It's a quote used in Ramakrishna Paramhansa's book, by the way. This whole digging too many wells, and then you dig that one well and you go deep in it and it'll give you that water, that nectar that you really desire.
Yeah, it's like shopping in a supermarket for spiritual goods, but you just get, like you said, spiritual junk food if you do too much of it.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that Ganpati is the lord of music.
Yeah.
An experiment I've been doing every now and then is website hai. I forget the name, but if you search on Google ragas for different times of day, it shows up. And then some nice folks on Spotify, some users only, have identified those ragas and they've put them up on Spotify. So early morning ragas, late afternoon ragas. My favorite are late morning ragas because ragas ki jo wo timing hai, they're a little different than what we think of as morning, afternoon, evening and night, right?
Yeah.
So I play those. अब मुझे नहीं पता इसमें, of course, this conversation is entirely non-funded or non-supported by science. If those people haven't tuned out by now, it's very obvious. But something strange has been happening whenever I play these ragas for the times of day. I don't need focused music if I'm trying to work. If I'm sitting, I don't need to, even if I can't scroll when I'm listening to these ragas. बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है मेरे लिए अपने autopilot गंदे behaviors करना. It's a little hard. So as someone who's obviously loved music all his life, I begin to wonder what is the role of ragas. And then you said Ganpati is the lord of music.
Yeah, so there's this very Gupt Sahasranama of Ganpati. Sahasranama means 1,000 or 1,008 names, and it's called Gakara Ganpati Sahasranama. And so Ga is the third note or the third raga, and it's known as the raga of compassion. Only when you have the compassion of a guru of Ganpati, That's when you're able to ascend to higher stages in your sadhana. Similarly, music is related to Jupiter or Guru. It's also Guru also begins with a Ga. And so that is what the relationship with ragas is, to have that grace of Jupiter onto you. It aligns you for the day. Either you do pranayama or you listen to really good ragas on it. That's a sadhana in itself. So a lot of musicians, if you see, they have really beautiful posture. They have really, so they're very disciplined. They tend to lead really, good lifestyles.
Musicians and good lifestyles, what are you
Not
saying?
the pop musicians, but like if you listen to
like the
classical
classical
music,
guys, yeah.
they have a very tight schedule about how they want to do things,
Yeah.
how much they want to practice, everything. So that's also like a grace of Ganpati. Ganpati loves music because he's born under, there's one of the nakshatras, Dhanishta nakshatra. So Ganpati loves music because of that. Dhanishta is the one that's the drum or the mridanga. And so when you play your life a certain way, it's going to give you that good result that you need. That's what Jupiter essentially is also. You have to play by certain rules or parameters. That's what that's what happens in classical music.
That's why it's so pleasant, perhaps. Like, if your mind is so stimulated by all of the things you consume on the internet, even music becomes a menace, right? You could play your best favorite song from your childhood, and after a while, with the same lyrics, ya kitne bhi usme chord progression, so you still feel a little bit at unease. But I think the power that ragas or classical music, even Western classical music, like Succession is a wonderful show, but the music that they've made, or the Godfather music, or any show that has classical music, there's something so stirring, emotionally stirring about it, that you don't just get when music is just out and about, stuff like that. Or I just find that kind of music very dramatic, where it's almost like, for me, it becomes the music for manifesting something, because that score invites in my mind a kind of mood that I want to create. And it just also is very foretelling of, like, if I listen to the Godfather theme, I think of impending responsibilities and what happens when doom comes and how will I sort of rise up. When I listen to Succession, I think about inevitable success. But there's no lyrics, but it's just built in a way where the mood invokes that in me. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually the devta of that particular raga that takes you to that, it gives you that certain rasa. Rasa means that taste. So devtas, Shiva especially, he's the king of all rasas. He enjoys everything. And so when you worship Shiva, that's why you become detached, but you're still out in the world and acting and doing things as you would. But the devta, they give you a taste, or they give you a rasa of that particular sort of state of being. So for example, if you listen to Rag Yaman, which is related to Venus, it's a common Venus remedy to listen to Rag Yaman. It's a very, a lot of Hindi music has been written to it, very romantic songs and everything. So that invokes Shringara Rasa, which means the mood for love, or the mood for, contemplating about your lover and yearning about them.
Have you watched In the Mood for Love?
I did.
Yeah.
It's
The
actually
song-
such a beautiful movie.
Yeah, but the song isn't like that at all. It's like it's a sad song.
Yeah, so there's two types of Shringara Rasa. One is where you are united with the lover, and that's
Yeah.
what so Shiva Parvati, united with the lover. And then there's this Rasa which is where you're away from your lover, or you're away from the beloved. That's how we feel about God. That's how Radha felt about Krishna. It was still Shringara Rasa, but there's like a slight tone of sadness to it.
Yearning, yeah.
Yeah, yearning.
What do you think about the relationship between perhaps your planets and houses and sad music?
Planets and houses and Saturn is really, like, every time I see someone, and I see this in my own chart, I have a Saturn ruled moon.
Sure.
So I love sad music, just Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
All of these people. I think it invokes a lot of longing for the divine. That feeling of longing, Saturn just gets it. To be away from someone and to know what it's like. So that's what sad music does to you.
So because you've seen many clients, of course, can you, for the ones that you know a little bit well, can you tell what music taste is linked to what kind of placement or nakshatras? Is that something that is there out yet?
I kind of have seen, so Dhanishta Nakshatra natives, like not clients, but also like friends I've studied astrology with, There's this one person who has Jeshta moon. She actually hates music. She just hates listening to music. She's like, it's so overstimulating. But then she has Mercury in the second house and it's in Capricorn, and so it just no interest in anything. So an interest in these things is related to Venus. So your ability to enjoy music or enjoy anything is related to Venus. So even if you have Jupiter really well placed, but if your Venus is with like Ketu or some other planet, you're not going to be able to enjoy the thing. And then you see a lot of Mars people into, techno, heavy metal. Seen that a lot. Sun people love a lot of sun people. Bad way of saying things, but people who have a strong sun also love techno a lot.
Sure.
From what I've seen. ऐसे तो इतना I don't really gauge people's music taste like
through
that.
their placement.
Yeah. But generally that's the case.
Sure. When it comes to like a chart, जिसके अंदर different planets हैं, different houses हैं, can you possibly have too many afflictions and debilitations and still enjoy a peaceful life? Is that possible?
Yeah, happens so many times. If you read like Shri Amitabh Bachchan's chart,
Shri
I don't know
Amitabh
why I
Bachchan.
can say that.
Shri Amitabh
That just
Bachchan.
got out of my...
It's okay.
I don't even like him that way. But if you look at Amitabh Bachchan...
Shri Amitabh Bachchan. It's almost like you're felicitating someone at an award.
He has a lot of 8th house placements and 12th house... Dusthana placements, okay?
He's fucked.
Yeah, but is he? Like, he had that one bout of really bad health.
Yeah.
But generally, his chart is fine. Like, he's fine.
But then I guess the issue is outward success is perhaps easier seen. I'm talking about inner contentment. The dude can't sleep. He's got insomnia. He also just weirdly numbers all his tweets, right? Without opining, because, someday I will meet him. It looks like he's in a loveless marriage. So it's not like things are all hunky-dory for Shri Amitabh Bachchan.
I guess it depends on what you describe as like a content life, or some people just find contentment in success. Some people find contentment in the kind of grinding they're doing. Depends from person to person. Some people like their peace of mind, so they don't get a job. So it depends. Like, it just, and having a lot of malefic placement does not mean you're doomed. A millionaire can be born, and like similarly a poor man can be born at the same time. Doesn't mean, it just depends on the kind of karma you have in this life.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Aman Bedi, he's a master of nakshatras. He wanted to meet another friend. I've just met him once in my life, Paramveer Beniwal. He does like travel vlogs. He's the only Indian to perhaps done travel vlogs in Hindi, and he goes to daring places. Haiti chala jayega, wo aisi jagah pe chala jayega jahan imminent death is there. Like, he isn't scared. So Aman went to meet him, and he's like, bro, he has all the same placements as you except for the moon. मैंने कहा ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है यार? He's like, everything aligns, every single thing. He's like, I've seen it in twins. I'm like, but our lives are so different. We live such different lives. Sure, he is also a vagabond, nomadic person, right? But he doesn't know anything about Jyotish, by the way. He has no idea about Jyotish. उसे कुछ पता नहीं है परम को क्या है कैसे है. It's like, how is that possible? Like, we have, I mean, sure, we're both in social media, I guess, but for me, it doesn't make sense.
I actually met my chart twin I think 2 years ago on Twitter. I've met her in real life as well. We're born like 1 day apart. So there's not a huge difference in our charts at all. Same ascendant, same everything. But we live completely different lives. And that happens all the time. It depends. Again, you come with a certain karma in this life. And if you leave Jyotish aside, you are supposed to live out that karma. And some of it you may not have to live out, or it gets transferred onto a next
But
life.
how is that possible कि दो लोगों का same chart है but their lives are so different? Like, I understand that everyone born on a certain date is like, oh, we're like all January babies or March babies, whatever. But it's still, their lives are so different. But I would
it's
assume
also nurturing, right? And so there's nature and nurture, as we hear. Nurture plays a huge part. If they're twins, one child will receive a certain kind of treatment, the other child would receive a different kind of treatment.
Yeah.
And that sort of, even if your trauma is so subtle, even if your mom takes like 2 minutes to reach you when you're crying as a baby for food, you're going to have a trauma imprint of it. It's a very known thing. So if you're neglected just a little bit as a child, and a lot of second children or a lot of
Are you a second child?
No, I'm a first child.
Okay, so you can't relate. Neither can I.
But yeah, a lot of, but my sister is still favored more. So
वो तो हो ही जाता
cut
है
that out.
क्योंकि छोटे बच्चे ज़्यादा वो करते हैं. They do a lot of RR, ज़्यादा वो बोलते हैं कि हम छोटे हैं, हमारे को वो नहीं मिला, ये नहीं मिला. So
Yeah.
parents have to be a little bit more.
But
Looking at my sister right now.
But it also it depends on your parents' condition at the time you were born, right? So if your parents are, relatively young, have no idea, have an accidental baby, they don't know how to treat you, right? Because they're still learning how to go through life. Whereas with the second child, parents
Lot more
generally have a
experience,
lot
sure.
better, so they have an experience, they know what to do.
Look, my parents had me very young, and I think barring a few things, generally stable in the head, I guess. You can. The reason I say this personal thing is because then what is the point of Jyotish if nurture is so different? अगर वाकई में मेरा चार्ट मेरी डेस्टिनी बताता है या मेरे जीवन का सार क्या रहेगा बताता है, तो then what is the point of nurture then? I could be nurtured.
I think you can still figure out ways in which you can, work with the placements that you have. You get whatever you get in this life. Some people get really nice placements and they still don't do much in their lives, and some people have very difficult placements.
Yeah.
They still, push through them. So your chart is not supposed to define you. People think oh, this is just the one thing in my life that's defined me. Khalas, I can't change. But that's not the case. You can change. You can evolve completely out of this. This is just a blueprint of your birth, You get to know a lot of your problems, your behaviors, your problematic ways of doing things, and then you go past them. That's the whole point.
But yeah, I think one of the
So
biggest...
even with your sort of nurturing that you have with your parents, you're supposed to get rid of that conditioning as well. That my parents did that to me, so I was really sad about it, and then I can't do
I
this.
love my parents.
I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying in general, a lot of people have this thing where they start blaming their parents, even though the parent is not physically around anymore. So I think it's good to take accountability.
I agree with you. I think humanizing your parents whenever that happens. For me, it really happened when I started reading Carl Jung, because I really started to see my parents as human beings, and I mean, kudos to them as well. That they're very, they're generally good people, I think, and I think when you do that, it also means that I think people are very afraid of taking responsibility for their lives, because इसका मतलब ये है कि भाई उनकी गलतियाँ थी इसलिए मैं ऐसा हुआ, से हट के आपको बोलना पड़ेगा, oh, it's all my fucking fault, or how do I fix it? But then there is a tricky road, because people take too much responsibility and they become self-berating, where they think everything's their fault and they don't allow themselves compassion, right? Some self-compassion, I think. So it's tricky. Let me ask you this. What are some placements for insane success and fame?
5th house moon, Dhanishta Nakshatra, Jyeshta Nakshatra. A lot of these sort of empty nakshatras, so Dhanishta, Jyeshta, Magha, you see it very common. Mercury is very important for success, because Mercury represents other people, friends, and people who can uplift you in life. So having a good Mercury placement, and then Sun is good for influence. That's why a lot of politicians, they do certain sadhanas to get that siddhi of being able to influence people. I guess it depends on where exactly you want fame in your life. So there's this mercurial type of fame, which is you do the same thing over and over again, and it gets Taylor Swift, really strong Adra moon. She has a good Mercury and everything. She does the same thing repeatedly, tops charts and everything. Then there's this kind of fame that's, Adele, she has that kind of influence where she doesn't show up with albums every year or anything
She's
like that.
She's non-existent in public life.
Yeah, and she's also a projector in human design. So she also does these residencies. Human design is a whole different thing.
Kya hai? What is
It's this method developed by this scientist. I don't even know if he was a scientist, but he kind of mixed up chakras and then astrology and everything together, and he created this system where he divided people into manifestors, projectors, reflectors.
अच्छा उसने नया वो बना दिया.
Generate. हाँ उसने he just
What is that thing
MBTI?
called? Yeah. MBTI. He built a new
Myers-Briggs.
MBTI. Yeah, new Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
Fuck, the West eats this shit up, huh?
Yeah,
They're
so-
like, oh, ये तो ENFJ है, मेरी बात नहीं समझेगा. Like, what the fuck?
People love self-indulgent stuff. Like it indulges you in knowing more about yourself. But there's-
Astrology is no different that way.
yeah, 100%. Started off that way with me as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got Adele. What is she like known for?
So she's known for like not releasing albums. That's Saturn's influence. That kind of fame is very Saturnian. She's been releasing music since she was 18, 19.
Yeah.
She's been having consistent releases, but they're very slow, very stretched out between different.
But she remains. Her footprint remains still. If you
yeah,
see even
that's what legacy is. Saturn.
Yeah. So because Adele के गाने reels बनती थी 3 साल पहले भी अभी भी बनती रहती हैं. Yeah.
So that's what Saturnian legacy is, right? Shani is supposed to put you through the grinder, but he'll give you really good results. He's very benevolent that way. Like once he puts you through that trouble, he'll give you good results. And then there's this kind of fame that's very small. So Rahu fame, where 15 minutes of fame. Someone comes out with one song and then they...
Like
Ganesh.
PSY, Gangnam Style.
Yeah, anything that goes viral very quickly, but then nobody recognizes the other songs or anything like that. One hit wonders, basically.
Yeah.
So that's Rahu. But they changed like the way music is viewed in a lot of
Right.
ways.
What about moon-based fame? Is that something?
Moon-based fame is, I think Ariana Grande has that effect because she has a lot of people who want to copy her constantly. There's like a lot of lookalikes. So moon is actually very important in influencing other people. And so because you use your mind and you use your beauty and you use your face to get people to come to you. And so if you have like a good moon placement in general, a lot of actors have a really nice moon placement. That's why they're able to go in and out of characters pretty easily.
That's it? That's the plans for fame?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much, again, different planets for different types of fame. But one thing you see very common is having Aquarius there because it's literally the 11th house. It's the most visible house of the chart.
I have very mixed feelings about Vedic Twitter.
Me too.
Yeah, and I have a friend, Anmol Babbar, a fantastic Reels creator, comedy creator. He put me on, he fucking ruined my life, I will say first of all. He ruined my life in the way कि उसने मेरे को Vedic Jyotish के YouTube channels दे दिए बहुत सारे. And I got into it. And I got into it so much that I couldn't get out. And look, I'm doing a podcast with you now, years later. Ruined my life in the way, he didn't ruin my life. He hastened what was going to happen eventually, right? So उसने मेरे को फिर Pinterest वाले वो दिखाया ज्योतिष. मेरे को वो बढ़िया लगे because those people actually write like long articles on Pinterest. Then I discovered Vedic Twitter and क्या बोलते हैं sidereal Twitter, tropical Twitter. उसके बाद फिर उसमें the black women came, right, and the white women came, and they just, I don't know, they just pop culturized the fuck out of Jyotish. और उसके बाद अब I don't know what it is, like I'm so hooked. I'll search, okay, Purva Shada, like ऐसे search कर Twitter पे, you get these small one-liner tweets, just I don't know, like talking about Jyotish in very strange ways, but I don't understand it. I don't know, like as a sucker who wants more, who wants to see more. I'm like, सारे websites खत्म हो गए हैं. Should not put it in ChatGPT as well. Let's just go on Twitter. And it's just these rando accounts. Like कोई Milwaukee में बैठा है, कोई Atlanta में बैठा है, and like just saying, oh, you know, Purva Shada Risings and like this. I'm like, भाई अब मैं क्या करूँ? मैं कितना देखूँ? Because it's just a new way of creating content. So I don't know. What do you think about this?
So my thing is, one, I think Twitter is not like a serious place to study Jyotish. That's why even in my bio I've written entertainment. Because that's what it is.
Right.
I am not even there to amuse anybody but myself. And I have fun out of fun just tweeting about my observations about what I do in terms of Jyotish or like in my upasana and everything. But other than that, it's not like a very serious place, and which is why I recommend everybody get a guru or like get serious with books. So I post a lot of helpful resources as well, a lot of books about Jyotish, and if they want to get into serious study, that is the way to do it. Because you're not going to be able to understand half of these tweets, even if you look at it from a perspective.
लड़ाइयाँ कर रहे होते हैं कि Mercury nakshatras get the most hate, but actually ये वाले नक्षत्र और बुरे होते हैं. वो लड़ाई, what the hell is happening? And these people block each other. Like you'll see कि वो this account has blocked. मैंने कहा भाई ये चल क्या रहा है?
It will be, Jyotishis have been cursed by the goddess Parvati to not agree with each other. I've said this so many times. Like nobody, if you see two Jyotishis talking, even if you are the closest friends, you are always going to clash in terms of opinions. Nobody agrees with anything, anything. There'll be someone randomly would tweet things like, Atmakarka is not about your destiny. Completely new concept, never been written before. It's so crazy. But you get to see all of these things, and then you get to reaffirm your faith in the concepts you've learned.
So you're saying that one should actually never go to Twitter or other social medias to learn. That's different from consuming and perhaps कि हाँ एक आध ऐसे चलते हुए insight मिल गई. Learning is simply done through a guru and through the old books.
100%. Learning is done through self-effort, having the grace of the divine in some way, either with a guru or not, and third, you have to put in the work and study Jyotish for 2 hours and then have a particular sadhana and have a good disciplined routine around it if you want to become a serious practitioner. Twitter is just for entertainment.
When it comes to romance and love, are there certain placements or nakshatras that are super bad for it and certain that are super good for it?
I don't like to say things like that.
Say it like you want it then.
Some placements are bad for romance or good for romance. It's very, it depends on who you meet and what kind of romance you have with them and what kind of karma you have with them in this life. It's not dependent on, because there's like a lot of fear mongering around this, right? In India itself, लड़की के चार्ट में मंगल दोष है तो उसका कुंभ विवाह करवा दो, लड़की के चार्ट में ये प्रॉब्लम है तो इसकी ये पूजा करवा दो. You're not really understanding the pain of the human being who's going through that kind of, suffering in terms of romance or their dating life or anything like that, which just sucks, because Jyotish is supposed to be about helping people. And so whenever I do this like singles love reading, and 90%...
Singles love reading.
Yeah. And so 90% of the people come in with the thought that, oh, I'm going to find my love. I'm going to tell them exact dates in which they're going to have a next relationship. It ends up being sort of a therapy session. I wouldn't say, I don't like to use the word therapy over here, but it sort of ends up becoming me telling them to love themselves more, because this constant seeking for a romantic partner also comes from this place of where it comes from somewhere you're not giving attention to yourself.
Sure.
So that's my thoughts.
I think people end up finding very attractive partners that are right for them when they sort of rise up in their own eyes and, like you said, start with self-compassion.
Yeah.
Of course, though I have seen something in my extreme high achiever friends that it is difficult. The easiest thing to love is to love your product or service or business. The hardest thing to do is to love yourself, because you clearly operate from such a place of lack and insecurity and jealousy and hatred and malice. That is why you're able to build such massive towers, businesses, IPs, whatever. So,
yeah, and it's also the hardest for them to love themselves is because they do it out of this impulse. This impulse comes from like, oh, I'll be liked by someone if I achieve a lot of these products in the external world. That's rarely ever the case. So it all begins from within, truly.
Have you consulted with the startup CEOs and founders?
Sometimes, occasionally, I talk to
any particular
people.
What are the most, for example, any particular profession, what are the most common placements that you found?
So if you look at people who are into medicine, Mercury is very common because it's the planet of being able to know concisely what kind. So surgery majors or like anybody I come across who has like been studying medicine, they have Mercury very common. Ashlesha Nakshatra is one of the common things. Speakers, orators, people like you generally have Jupiter as a strong placement. And then a lot of people into Jyotish actually have Venus, because it's Venus that gives you that love for Shastras and love for studying all of these things. So that's there. And then actors and politicians, Sun, it's very common.
Not Saturn?
Saturn's there. I think politicians would have, like the politicians that are in bigger positions would have less of Saturn and more of solar influence. But if you look at the regular government Karamcharis, that's definitely a Saturnian group. They take their time very easy. What else? Accountants, Mercury, people who are really good with math. Mercury and Ketu influence. Ketu gives really good mathematical skills. What else? What other professions do I know? Writers are also related to Mercury. Generally, like Mercurials are good at a lot of different fields because they're able to adapt very easily. So if I see like a good Mercury in the chart, they're stuck on wanting to do a particular kind of thing.
You know, what about the Rahuvians, the Ketuvians, and the SSRians?
SSRians?
Sushant Singh Rajput. No, because sometimes I've read on Vedic Twitter कि ये Rahuvian है, ये Ketuvian है. I find that their wordplay very funny.
We're all technically Rahuvian, Ketuvian because we love desiring.
It sounds like the name of an alien race.
हाँ, हम लोग तो सभी कलयुग में everyone is Rahuvian because we're constantly wanting things और एक बार जब चीज़ मिल जाती है we're like
whatever.
Next thing.
Already had it in my past life. I don't need it.
No. Next is Amazon Pay, next delivery come. So that's what happens with. There's no such thing as. I don't really believe in this whole planetary dominance system because there's various different ways of defining it. Some people say if your planet is in a Vriddha Avastha, which means at the oldest, it's the most influence. That is your Atmakarka. Some people say that if you have Bala, so planetary strength, however the Bala is, that makes the planet most dominant. But all planets are constantly working towards helping you live your life.
Before we end, I would like you to take us through the saga of nakshatras.
What do you want to know?
We can start from the reverse and go to the first one. Mostly because I haven't found very discerning accounts of nakshatras, barring my friend Aman, who does a lot of research and some pages. But Vedic Twitter is in fact more dominated by nakshatras than it is by other things, is what I've seen.
Nakshatras are very important. So I'll dispel a couple of myths over here because I'm tired of tweeting about them and saying the same thing over and over again.
Sure, we'll cut you a clip of this.
One, there's no planetary lord of a nakshatra. So when people say, oh, this nakshatra is ruled by Mercury, this nakshatra is ruled by Mars, that does not happen. The only lord of the nakshatra is their husband, Chandra. Chandra rules over all of these nakshatras. And the secondary sort of lords, we can say, is the devtas that rule over the nakshatras. That is my perspective. Other people can completely differ. And
Jyotish guys, attack.
And then the other myth about nakshatras is you can't use them with like in separation with the planets. So some people are like, oh, I have this nakshatra, and they don't exist in the D9, D10, D57, whatever chart.
Just in the D1 chart.
Just in the D1 chart because you actually see them in the sky. You don't really see them. So the divisional charts, they're actually just like they don't really exist in the sky when you're born. They're taken out of your regular chart. But yeah, those are the myths about nakshatras. Okay, so starting from...
Let's start from the reverse.
Revati Nakshatra. Okay, so Revati Nakshatra is ruled by a psychopomp known as Pushan. So Pushan had this strange incident with Shiva where Shiva kicked his face and his teeth fell out. And so he roams around toothless. Because he was talking a lot. And that's why I told you about this whole Mercury and Pisces thing, right? Why it debilitates over there. But it's also the nakshatra of, porting from one place to another. There's just like a complete you go from the womb to then into the real world. That's what Revati is. It's that Gantanta nakshatra. So with Revati and Ashwini, we get Svagandanta, which means self-tied knot. This is where you give trouble to yourself in Revati and Ashwini.
Yeah, for context, Ashwini is the start and then Revati is the end, right?
Yeah.
This
So
is the life cycle.
Yeah,
of a
so
person.
that is known as Swagantanta,
Huh.
which means to give problems to myself.
Yeah. Good. So both nakshatras are good self-sabotagers.
Yeah, really good at that.
But so for context, you're talking about in this particular podcast, you're talking about moon nakshatras.
Yeah.
Janma nakshatras,
Only
right?
Janma
This does
nakshatra.
not apply to ascendants or sun or anything else.
This whole like thing about, sun
Rising
nakshatra,
moon, sun,
rising, all of those things, it's fun and all to play around with and to understand yourself with, but your most important is your Janma nakshatra, mainly because it's the mother and the mother gives birth to you and she's supreme. That's my take.
Take received. Chalo. Fir?
But okay, so we have Ashwini nakshatra, which is the birth of
Aren't you doing Revati to...
so Revati and then
No, Revati to the end? How do you want to do this? You want to do Revati and then go all the way back to Ashwini?
no, just Revati Ashwini. That's where the life cycle ends at Revati, and then you begin a new life.
Okay,
in
so you're
Ashwini.
starting at
That's-
Revati and then going to Ashwini.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ashwini is the conception point of
Okay.
where like the egg and the sperm unite,
Yeah.
and then Bharni is the point. So did you know that the ovum or the egg basically decides what kind of sperm it wants? It's a very Yama-like thing, right? And so that's what Bharni represents.
But you
It's
didn't
that
talk slightly more about Ashwini.
Ashwini is
All the Ashwinis in the house are pissed off now. Look, there's the Ashwini right there.
Ashwini is the nakshatra of, again, transport is a common theme between those two nakshatras. So you go from your past life into a new area of life. But it's in Revati, it's a little more, there's a tinge of sadness there. But with Ashwini, there's it's still a little happier because it's also,
Just
the
born.
deities are related to Ashwini Kumaras, who are very jolly. Like if you read any accounts of their birth, they would come in, they would dance, and they would celebrate life. And so it's the start of something new. So you let go of everything old in Revati, and then you start afresh with Ashwini. And then Bharni, it gets a little more intense because then you come in with so much enthusiasm, and then Bharni gets to decide whether you are supposed to live a certain type of life or not. So
What does that mean?
so, like I said, the egg decides what kind of sperm it wants. And it is your mother who basically, and which is why it's related to the yoni. Bharni's symbol is the yoni. So, it is the yoni that decides whether you're going to be in this life for a certain point of time, whether you're going to die within the yoni itself. There's a lot of factors related to Bharni. It's a very interesting nakshatra in general. And so we have next is Kritika, which is related to Kartikeya. And Kartikeya had 7 mothers who were, and he was taking a lot of nourishment from them, which is why it's the exaltation of the moon. And it seeks a lot of nourishment in this life, and it's related to, Kritika is a common nakshatra in people who are in the hotel industry and stuff like that. They love feeding people. So Kritika nakshatra would represent, your first food, that nourishment that you get. And then we go to Rohini, where you enjoy that food, which is why Rohini is the favorite wife. Actually, when you look at the elliptical, the moon slows down in the Taurus constellation. That's why it looks like it's spending a lot of time with Rohini.
Hence the story about everyone else being pissed off at Rohini, right?
Only Jeshta was pissed off, and then she
Sorry.
riled every other
I'm
sister.
apologizing for Jeshta.
So Jeshta, and fairly, it's not like an unfair because the moon is lustful. He's going to want to try to spend time with this one who is full, and she's voluptuous, and she's beautiful, and she's giving, and she's kind of not very attached to this guy. She's kind of enjoying by herself. And so with Jeshta, she's just like, hello, you have to spend time with your other wives. That's why Jeshta Nakshatra is good at speaking up. So a lot of controversial people, they tend, Donald Trump, look at him.
Love him. Yeah.
Jeshta Nakshatra. So,
No, but you were Rohini.
Yeah, Rohini. So Rohini is where you enjoy the food. It's at the middle of the second house, so it's where you get a lot of comfort and you're really happy. And then Rohini is also the birth of creativity. It's like Saraswati Nakshatra. And then from Rohini we move on to, so Rohini starts becoming. So have you heard that story of Brahma and Saraswati and Brahma chasing the creation?
You also talked about the story earlier on the podcast
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
So Brahma starts chasing Rohini, and this actually represents this attachment we have to our creation, that motherly bond that mothers have with their children and everything. So this is what Rohini is actually running away from, and she turns into a deer, which gets to Mrigashira Nakshatra. Mrigashira Nakshatra is the nakshatra of, it's known as the searching star. It's constantly seeking some respite. So there's this very interesting story about Mrigashira and the perfume called Kasturi. I don't know if you've...
या वो जो मशहूर कहानी है कस्तूरी हिरण की, जिसकी नाभि के अंदर वो कस्तूर की महक होती है, लेकिन वो हर जगह ढूंढता रहता है उसको दुनिया भर में.
Yeah, and they're driven mad with this search. Where's the smell coming from? And so that stage of our life also comes in when we're, like toddlers and we're babies. We're driven mad by so much stimulation. That's why when you're like younger, the colors seem a lot brighter.
Yeah, fuck. Now it's all dim.
And now everything just seems like you watch something when you were a child and you rewatch it now. It's like it just doesn't feel the same.
I remember as a kid, you remember oil pastels?
Yeah.
The colors? There used to be a color called Prussian blue. मुझे पता नहीं वो क्यों याद है. And I'd be like, wow, Prussian blue को waste नहीं करना क्योंकि इसकी blue की गहराई अलग ही next level है. So, and I would just color with it. मैंने कहा, Prussian blue कितना गहरा है. Wow. Now it's all fucking blue and I can't see it.
Yeah. Well, you drink a lot of that soma, the juice of life, when you're looking at it from a new perspective, right? When you're a baby. But now, because you've seen the same thing over and over again, you're just like, kya naya hai? Tree, that's all I see. There's nothing new.
Yeah.
Which is why there's this kriya that we do. It's called nididhyasa, which means to constantly free your mind of all of those perceptual qualities that you attach to a certain
What is
thing.
this, Kriya?
Nididhyasa. So you sit and meditate over a thing. Let's say you meditate over yourself. That's the biggest thing because you have so many concepts attached to yourself. So you're just like, what am I without this? What am I without this? What am I without this? And you become closer and closer to the realization that you're actually not limited as a being. And so it refreshes your perspective every time you get a new insight. And that's like an exercise in creativity.
Sure.
That's why they say ask people to journal all the time. It's practically nididhyasa. So that's Mrigashira Nakshatra. It's in that search for Soma. And then after Mrigashira, we come to Punarvasu. It's a nakshatra that a lot of people don't really talk about, but Rama was born under this nakshatra, and he was such a great warrior. No, Rama was born under Pushya or Punarvasu?
We can check that.
I think it's Punarvasu only.
Would you like to have some water?
No, I'm good. Thank you. So we have Punarvasu Nakshatra where there's like a rebirth of some kind taking place, and that's what difficulty does to you if you're moving constantly and you have that sort of strong stop somewhere. You have to be reborn, and that I missed a nakshatra in between. Ardra. There's 27 of them. Please don't.
That's okay. If you want, I can have the list so I can just tell the names to you.
I do remember them. I'd be a bad astrologer if I don't remember
It's
them.
okay.
But I have to keep going back
okay.
and forth. But Ardra Nakshatra is that sort of tear, right? It's that tear of Rudra that drops, and it's that tear of compassion. So if you're and so that's the nakshatra where a lot of like people who are in service related industry are sort of born, because they want to touch people's hearts and they want to give to people in a lot of ways, and it's an extremely compassionate nakshatra. A lot of people with Ardra Nakshatra also tend to be vegetarians, from what I've seen, because they love animals. The Lord of Animals, Pashupatinath, is related to that particular nakshatra. And so we have that difficulty of Ardra, recognizing that compassion of that deer who's constantly seeking Soma. And then we have Punarvasu, that's that rebirth point. It's also represent. So Punarvasu is a very spiritually rich nakshatra, and then it then moves into a slightly more intense nakshatra, which is Ashlesha. So here we
No,
have
you missed Pushya.
Pushya. Okay, Pushya is the nakshatra. So Punarvasu, you accumulate a lot of wealth and you accumulate a lot of things after difficulty. Pushya is where you begin to unburden that wealth and giving it to other people. So it's the nakshatra that's related to so anybody who has Pushya, this is a observation shared by one of my friends. Anybody who will have Pushya in their chart, they will always be nourished no matter what. They'll have their basic needs met. It'll never be like, oh, I'm suffering because of poverty. They'll always be taken care of by some grace of God. So that's why it's known as the most auspicious nakshatra. So after Pushya, you give away all of your wealth and everything, and then you have Ashlesha, which is known as the clinging star. So Ashlesha nakshatra is related to yoga, not the yoga that we do with asana practice, but real yoga, union with the divine. So clinging to this idea of the divine and trying to seek juice from divine sources and everything. That's why they're really intelligent. It's a very intelligent nakshatra. It keeps getting reduced to just this seductive
Serpent, manipulator, trickster.
Yeah. But the serpent who actually provoked Eve to eat the apple, again, it's related to Ashlesha nakshatra in some way. So we have Ashlesha, and then here comes the Matrugandanta, which is Ashlesha to Magha, where you give trouble to your mother.
Bunch of Maghas crying in the comments.
But trouble to your mother could also be interpreted as trouble to your own mind, because Matra is related to the mind we have. And so we have Ashlesha, and then we have Magha nakshatra, where that's that burden or that responsibility of a throne, which is very important again. And Magha nakshatra is also related to the Pitris, so doing whatever your ancestors have been doing for a long time, all of those things. I actually have like a whole chart about the nakshatras and what their duties are and everything, if you want to see it.
Yeah, where is it? People can find
It's
it
on
online.
my phone.
It's on your phone, okay.
I've kept it safe.
Yeah, we can, if you will send it to me, we will have it superimposed on this part of the podcast. We can do that.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have Magha, and so there's
Purva
Falguni, which is known as the other red one. So there's Rohini, who is the red one, and then Purva Falguni is like the other woman. So the courtesans that are enjoyed by kings are related to Purva Falguni. It's a very luxurious.
It's an OnlyFans placement?
I don't know about that. Could be possible. But Purva Falguni is very artistic and very creative, and it just, again, it's like one of the Kama nakshatras, I think. But so there's Purva Falguni, and Purva Falguni is also related to really strong penance. So a lot of artists, they go through a lot of penance in order to achieve that kind of fruit or that kind of result that they want in their life. And so that result itself is given by, the intervention of other people, and the help of other friends and stuff like that. That's what Uttara Falguni represents. It's the star of patronage. So they usually say that Arjuna is born in Uttara Falguni nakshatra, and he had Krishna as his friend to guide him through that war in Kurukshetra. And so those I also relate Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni to Shiva Parvati in the way that Purva Falguni is related to Annapurna, and Uttara Falguni is related to Shiva, who's begging for alms. Because he has to become really humble, and so that nakshatra does become really humble when it's around friends. And then we have Hasta nakshatra, I think, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Hasta, Chitra, Swati.
Hasta Chitra Swati. So Hasta nakshatra is basically knowing the Vedas at the back of your hand. It's a very, very intelligent nakshatra, and they're tricksters as well. There's this person, her name is Claire Nakti. She does all of these nakshatras.
Yeah, I've seen her videos, all of her videos.
Yeah. So she did a study on Hasta Nakshatra and Hasta men playing conmen.
Yeah, by the way, she's extremely good at. I've never seen a YouTube astrologer who does like research and use it. But I love her videos. Yeah.
Yeah. She's good at pattern recognition.
Okay.
Just say that. And so we have Hasta, and then Hasta is really knowledgeable as a nakshatra. And Virgo Rashi is generally a very, very knowledgeable Rashi. And then we have Chitra Nakshatra. So once you have studied, once you have that bookish knowledge, you can apply it in Chitra to gain like real world fame in a lot of ways. So Chitra is the star of, it's the star of getting fame. It's being able to do the right things at the right time in order to get the results that you want. It's a very analytical nakshatra as well. So if you know Kim Kardashian, she actually has a prominent Chitra placement, and the Kardashians are known to, sort of manufacture certain moments. There's this philosophy major I used to follow. She had a huge interest in keeping up with the Kardashians and everything, and she used to follow Kim's life in a philosophical way. She used to love that show, and she would say that these people, they manufacture moments, they know what to say at the right time and how to use that knowledge to divert people and everything. So that's what Chitra represents. Chitra also is like a generally provocative nakshatra to have in the chart. You can say things that can bring up a lot of reactions from people, or do things that can bring a lot of reactions. It's the chart of it's ruled by Vishwakarma, right?
The celestial architect.
Yeah. So he'll manufacture these moments out for entertainment. And
then you've got Swati.
Swati is, so there's this very interesting story related to Swati and Surya. So Surya's debilitation point is at Swati. And there's this rishi, and he's he's walking around exploring. It's the nakshatra of exploration, by the way. Negotiation, everything happens in Swati. So this rishi is exploring, but he gets really mad because he's walking around and the sun is shining so hard. His hands are getting burnt up. He's just feeling really hot, and he started shooting arrows at Surya. Surya Dev comes down and he's just like, what the hell, dude? Why are you shooting arrows? Nothing's going to happen to me, but why are you doing this? And so this rishi is like, I'm irritated by you. Do something about it. And so Surya Dev gives him padukas, these chappals that we wore back in the day, and then an umbrella so that he could continue exploring in the right time. So when you're having sun debilitated, this is one good thing that you can do, is you get to explore the world without feeling, like everybody's eyes are on you.
You can be a quiet observer of the world.
Yeah, quiet observer, and you can say things and you can do things that people won't notice constantly. So Swati Nakshatra is generally let go from
Good, I wish I had that.
doing a lot of things. They don't get a lot of people's eyes on them. And then Swati, and then there's Vishakha Nakshatra.
So questions, if people with Sun and Swati are very good like spies?
Yeah, that could happen. It's very possible.
Yeah. Okay. You were saying Vishakha?
Swati, and I've also seen like Dhanishta Nakshatra in spies, because they know the right time. You need to be at the right place at the right time. So that's what Dhanishta represents. And then Vishakha Nakshatra is related to victory, and victory that we've already, it's ruled by Indra and Agni, two deities, and two very opposing deities. One is like a very consuming deity, and Indra is someone who's very destable in a lot of ways. So we have Vishakha is also another name for Radha.
Isn't that Anuradha and Radha?
No, so Anuradha means that which comes after Radha.
Okay.
So Vishakha, and Radha was born under Vishakha Nakshatra. This is a common misconception people have, that she's born under Anuradha. So she's born under Vishakha Nakshatra, and her Sakhi Vishakha is born under Anuradha Nakshatra.
Understood.
Yeah. And so Vishakha Nakshatra is again yearning, longing for things. So you've had all of that fame with Chitra, you've done everything, you've used up all of those things, and then Shani is finding his exaltation point over here in Vishakha. So it's the period of slowing down, relaxing, all of those things. And then you move to Anuradha Nakshatra, which, and so from Scorpio Rashi onwards, these are very, very spiritual nakshatras that you get. All of these nakshatras, so the first few nakshatras are about, regular life, dealing with circumstances in student life, grihasthashram and everything. And then slowly over here, Scorpio Rashi, you find like a transformation into devotional life and thinking about things bigger than yourself and not limiting yourself to just me, my family. So we have Anuradha Nakshatra, it's the nakshatra of devotion. It's also the gatekeeper. So this is where you start becoming very, you start sort of moving away from society a little bit. In Anuradha, they're generally very isolated people. It's the nakshatra that also it just enjoys solitude in general. It's where sadhana gives really good fruit. So that's Anuradha, and then we have, oh my god, what's next?
Jyeshta.
Jyeshta Nakshatra. So Jyeshta Nakshatra is the quarreling one. So you, with Jyeshta Nakshatra, there's like a complete separation from societal norms and like trying to adhere to what other people are saying. So in that story also with Rohini and Jyeshta, Rohini was probably the one who was like a quiet, demure wife, kind of just, doing what she was told to do. Jyeshta was the one who spoke up. Back in the day, it was not usual for wives to speak up and oppose their husbands. And in Kalika Purana, Jyeshta actually plotted with her sisters to kill Chandra. She was just like, I'm going to kill this man. I can't stand him. So Jyeshta Nakshatra is about taking the bold step and moving forward. And then we come to a Gandanta point over here as well. And so with Jyeshtha and Mula is Vishnu Nabhi, and it's related to chaos. So when Jyeshtha speaks up, there's obviously chaos that'll change structures. That's going to, challenge the status quo and everything.
Yeah, Trump is a Jyeshta moon from what I know.
Yeah,
He speaks so much shit.
Yeah, and the Trump has like a prominent Sagittarius placement as well, I guess, in those nakshatras. So we have Mula with that. It's ruled by Nriti. She's one of the guardians of the direction.
It's the goddess of death, right?
Nriti is the goddess of chaos. She's not the goddess of death. And you need chaos sometimes. So nature has so we want to keep oppressing nature, but nature has a very self-balancing sort of way to do things. So any natural calamities that happen, they're ruled by Nriti. Because they're a result of us oppressing the nature in some way. So I think that's what Mula Nakshatra is about. Mula is really good at research as well. It's one of the best nakshatras to, learn something. A lot of people who work who've gotten their PhDs or anything like that, I see Mula is a very common nakshatra.
My mom is a moon in Mula, and one day I asked her, I was doing a podcast with this gentleman called People Baba. He's a environmentalist. I've had research assistants come up with a research paper, matlab ki ye research ka ek document banao. Usually I do my own research. She's my mother, right? And she's not a researcher, right? She doesn't have a degree in this. It was the best 2 pages I've ever read on someone. I did not have to watch a single People Baba video. It was that good. Because she had added so much context as opposed to just questions. Just giving an example of Moon and Mula.
That's the blessing of Akasha, right? Jupiter does that. It'll give you a fresh perspective. If you want copycats, you can just, find someone with a good Mercury. They'll script word to word whatever it is that you want. But if you have like a good Jupiter placement, that's going to give you like the juice of things. And so we have Mula Nakshatra, and then we move to Purvashada, Uttarashada. So these pairs are always together. They can't be isolated again. So Purvashada is related to Kartikeya. I've written a whole article about this. It's related to Kartikeya. Some people also say that it's Kartikeya's nakshatra, birth nakshatra. Some say it's Vishaka, some say Kritika. Different perspectives. So, and Uttarashada is related to Ganpati. And so Purvashada is related to making a lot of effort constantly. And the gains are actually found by Uttarashadas. So, have you heard that story of
Ganesha and Kartika racing to be around the world, and Ganesha is like, well, of course, mere world to mere maa baap Parvati or Shiv hi hain, so he just does 3 rounds around them. Super smart, super sly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what brains over brawn really is. So Purvashada, they kind of tend to put in a lot of effort, and that's why Kartikeya sort of flew off from Himalaya. He's like, I'm not going to stay here. I've been disrespected and everything. So it's also using a lot of effort, and that was useful at one point with Kartikeya. He destroyed Tarkasura, who was a menace to everyone in heaven. But at some point, you have to kind of let the brains come in, and that's why they work really well together. If you balance it out. So Uttarashada is about Ganesha, and it's about Vishwadevas. It's about, just becoming so humble. So Ganesha is very, very humble. And that's why he was able to be favored by Shiva and Parvati. And he got his head cut off. When you have your head cut off, you're naturally like humbled in a lot of ways. So Uttarashadas, I feel like they tend to be very humble. They don't like to brag about themselves or do anything like that.
Then you've got Shravana and Dhanishta and Shatabisha.
Yeah, my favorite. I was just discussing them yesterday. Shravana is where you get like a guru. So that's why the nakshatra Shravana is related to Vamana Avatara of Vishnu. And Vamana Avatara broke the ego of Mahabali, the king. And so Shravana Nakshatra, I feel like, is the guru, and who's, willing to sort of stay back and just... Many people think Shravanas are weirdos. They're very, very spiritually cognizant in a lot of ways. And then Dhanishta Nakshatra is how a guru transforms the student. So Dhanishta is like one of the Panchaka nakshatras. That's where the Panchaka begins. So these are the 5 nakshatras, the last 5 nakshatras that give a lot of difficulty in life. So they also say that if someone's born under the Panchaka period, from Dhanishta to Revati, they say like 5 people die or something like that happens. Didn't happen in my case, I don't know.
You're Dhanishta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Shatabhisha is very... So Dhanishta, it actually has to learn the lesson of not being too attached to your image. And then Shatabhisha is where you get to be really creative, do new things, bring in innovation and all of that stuff. You keep breaking the standard you've set. So Dhanishta is where like a standard is set, and then Shatabhisha is coming out and breaking it. And then Purva Bhadrapada is basically so Shatabhisha is kind of a social climber in terms of nakshatras. And then 11th house is actually a very difficult house in the chart because it's supposed to represent the jail as well. Your fame can be your jail. And so we have Purva Bhadrapada as a transitioning nakshatra with Uttara Bhadrapada is there. And so again we have the grace of... So Purva Bhadrapada is related to Agnihotras, which means giving up all of your, gains in fire sacrifices. And then Uttara Bhadrapada is just sort of focusing on spiritual, and then the last nakshatras are all about...
Wait, that's it? You're just betraying the trust of so many Uttara Bhadrapadas.
It's a very spiritually potent nakshatra, and it's also a nakshatra that is very common in priests. I see it a lot. Purva Bhadrapada, Uttara Bhadrapada, people want to become pastors, priests. They want to they're very realized in a lot of ways. You'll see Purva Bhadrapada in a lot of, these Babas, sannyasis. All of their charts, there'll be one Purva Bhadrapada placement. So these nakshatras, the funeral cot, that's what they're supposed to represent. Death, ending of life, and all of those things.
You already spoke about Revati at the start.
Yeah.
What about the Abhijit Nakshatra? Do people believe in that?
Abhijit Nakshatra is actually the yoni consort of Uttarashada, and so Lord Krishna just sort of put it down. But there's no use for Abhijit unless you're doing Muhurta selection. That's pretty much it. But in regular Jyotish, you're not supposed to use it.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing the marathon of going through Nakshatra 27 to 1 and vice versa. I'm sure it was very difficult to speak in such one long span. पर ये थे मेरे सवाल और ये थे मेरे themes. If you have anything to say, the mic is yours.
No, I think that's all. Just do your sadhana and make people around you happy.
Awesome. Where can people follow your work, Siddhi?
Twitter, Instagram. I have a website. I would really like it if people would go through the blog posts that I write, because people just want bite-sized information. But I would really
The blogs are very nice, by the way, guys. You should check them out. Yeah. So what is the website called?
Shreemastrology.com.
Shreem.
Yeah, it's the Lakshmi Bija.
Okay. I don't know what that is. Sure. Lakshmi Bija.
Lakshmi Bija mantra.
Acha, okay. Okay. Lakshmi Bija mantra. Got it.
So there's
Got it.
mantras that are long, and then there's the short form, which is
Oh, that's what the beej is.
it's the seed form of the deity.
Okay. So shreemastrology.com. Your Twitter is Shivamai.
It's at Shreem Astrology.
At
Everywhere
Shreem
is
Astrology.
Shreem
Shreem Astrology. Cool. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope that people are able to perhaps take away a slightly alternative take on Vedic astrology. And of course, I love your writings, and yeah, thank you.